Got it.
On its way.
Awesome. Very cool. All right. So, hello everyone. We just went live, and you are with Brett Nielsen, myself, and Nich Pak with K2 Systems, and we're trying to do something a little unique today. We are live streaming from CD Greentech Dallas on their mock roof with our field training team. We got Johan Alfsen, our head of training, on the mock roof out there. We got Dakota, our head of marketing in the US, helping us out. We also have Brad Bland, director of channel sales, is on site. And Nick and I have been talking for a long time about the format of sharing information for customers. And the webinar is just kind of like dead, is how I've always felt. Nick and I, for sure, we stay up to date and try to learn as much as we can and watch YouTube videos and podcasts. But as a manufacturer, the webinar has just been the way to do things, and it's kind of boring if we're being honest, right? I mean, most people despise sitting on a webinar, but so we try to do something a little more fun today. We always kind of wanted to try to do something live on the route so that we can answer questions, show you guys real live demo stuff. Right now, Nick, I mean, it looks like we have pretty good video quality. I think our sound is looking good. And what we're here to talk about today is something really important and special. We are doing our MiniRail Comp Roadshow. Like I said, we're at Greentech Dallas on site currently on their mock roof with our MiniRail Comp System that Johan is showing you with both cameras. This is actually pretty cool. And we wanted to take this time to walk you through the system, introduce you to the system, also with Nick and I on the live stream to talk about, why we made this system, how we got to this place. Nick and I and Johan especially live have been, especially in the racking space, for many, many years. I know a few of you guys probably know who we are, probably seen us at the shows. We've all come from previous racking companies, seen almost everything from a racking standpoint, at least residentially and commercially for the most part. That's our specialty. So, Nick, you want to kick us off with what we're doing and do some more intros on what our plan is today.
Absolutely, Brett. Thank you, everyone. I'm Nich Pak, K2 Systems here. I've actually been in the solar industry since 2010, and I wouldn't even be here today if it wasn't for this handsome guy who's on the roof today. Him and I both started at a company called Quick Mount PV. But with that said, we've both been in the industry almost a decade and a half now. We've seen a lot of great technology come and major leaps and advancements in the industry. One of the coolest things that we've got to partake in is getting involved with installers and all of our solar family out there. And today we're actually here doing this live stream to show you guys some of the brand new products that we're bringing to market here. We've seen a lot of railless systems out there in the market, and we decided to minimalize our system as much as possible, but make it impactful, that it's super fast and easy to install. It's glove friendly. It's and all in the ecosystem of what we have with CrossRail, and all the components fit nice.
So actually, before we get into the details, right?
Yeah. So hey guys, I don't know if you want, you can mute me if you want. I do have an installer. We're actually live right now. You can come in. We're gonna show you the system if you want.
But yeah, I'm gonna mute real quick. Hold on. You can chat with the guys on site. So we are actually, Johan is actually doing a live training at Greentech. We're doing like a counter day, basically at distribution, where guys come in the morning to grab their materials. It's a good opportunity for us on the mock roof to show the guys on the roof that matter how these systems work. But I do want to start with a little background, a little history, right? So this is a railless system, but it's a little bit different than the railless systems that have been out there before. And I think it is important to chat about the history of railless a bit.
Yes.
And there is a long history. Nick and I have actually been involved in this for a long time, helping at other manufacturers develop products for railless applications. So Nick, why don't you, for the audience and those of you that are live or going to be live or going to watch the recording, from your perspective, your experience, give the audience an idea of like what the background of Railless is. Like, where did that come from? Who kind of first started the concept, and how has it evolved over the last, let's say, 15 years? Because I think it's been almost at least 15 years since
Yeah.
Zep.
Yeah, 13. I will say you are right, Brett. The first time I had ever seen a railless system was Zep, the company that we were working with together. Back in the early 2000s, was in the East Bay area, and we had met up with a company called Zep, and they were the first people to show us this interlocking system that it was designed around the frame of the solar module. So this was the first time I had ever really seen this concept brought to market, or even just conceptually. It was a design and idea, and that kind of, I think that really kind of paved the or blazed the trail, Brett, of what we saw for Railless.
Well, I think, okay, so let's start there, right? So, there's a lot of salespeople that'll end up watching this. I think one of the things I'm pretty passionate about is trying to help solar salespeople get more educated, especially on the racking. But there's tons of installers and designers and engineers and ops people, procurement that'll be hopefully watching this. I think the big question is like, why, right? So, the standard method of installing modules on a roof obviously has been like train track style rails, whether it's tile or comp or metal. Like, that has been one of the that is the way to do it, right? That's how the guys generally know. But why did Zep come out, and what's the goal of those products? I guess is the question.
Absolutely. I think the goal and the vision with the application of railless or minimalizing rail was to reduce your footprint of materials that you were using, and to also maybe delete some of the parts that so many people had to bring up on the roof. I mean, even today we have the luxury of less parts, and some of the major leaps forward that K2 has made. We're trying to eliminate your BOM and reduce, sorry, not eliminate, but reduce down your BOM. But back then, racking was still, I guess, a younger industry, and there were so many parts and so many redundant parts. And when I saw Zep and saw that, oh my gosh, this system it like integrates into the frame. You only need mounts here or there. You don't need all of these large roof attachments and large rail connectors and large rails and redundant grounding pieces. It was actually one of the first time we had seen the what's it called, the bonding and grounding universal across the system without extra pieces.
Yeah.
So. From what I was told,
I think
at the time,
I think one of the interesting things, sorry, Nick, is I don't know if a lot of the newer folks in the industry know this, but when you look at a solar panel, there are holes at what we call the quarter points on the back of the module. And when the solar industry was pretty young, early 2000s, even in the 90s, that was literally how you would mount your modules, because most solar installs were going to be on the ground. That's how the modules were being manufactured. So those holes on the back of the panels are precisely located so that you can put bolts, and you can physically bolt those panels to your rails, typically on a ground mount kind of structure. And obviously, as the industry evolved in the ITC tax credits and local distributed generation interconnection agreements and net metering came in, that provided an opportunity for a lot of residential development. And obviously, it's almost impossible. I don't know if it is actually possible to bolt a module from those quarter points on a flush roof application, right, where it's like on the roof. So that was kind of like the start of a lot of the companies that are out there now, whether it's Unirac or Iron Ridge, K2, ourselves, in starting to develop some clever clips and clamps and mounts for how to actually get modules on it. So I'll touch on something real quick that you talked about railless, which I think is true. I think the main goal in railless going way back was less equipment, less parts, lower cost. And I think the story's always been sort of like trying to save time on the roof. And I think the funny thing for me, having been on a lot of roofs with a lot of installers, is I don't know that that's ever really been the case with a lot of the products that were developed. up until now is that the way these products have been designed and engineered and the way you have to install them, there have been a lot of parts. And there's been a lot of kind of confusing rules and design criteria depending upon the roof, the location of your rafters, and the location of things that are on the roof. And that has, I think, for a lot of installers, created a lot of issues, right? Made it more challenging to install, not less challenging to install.
Well, actually, you're bringing up a great subject about the entire approach and design of Railless was to simplify things, reduce materials, right? And I think that as the years have advanced on us, I think we've kind of found an interesting way of adding complexity to a reduced material system. So we've added more parts for things that are more like wants versus like absolute needs on the roof. In many cases, by doing what ZEP did and integrating the mounts and the engagement and supports into the frame of the module, what it did is it took away from things like concealing roof attachments under the array. Everything was brought forward with ZEP. So all of these roof attachments are sticking out in the front. Do you remember that, Brett?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, actually, I mean, if we're going to talk about the early days of ZEP, it's also like, well, this is like a trivia question. What was the biggest challenge with the ZEP?
Oh gosh, I think the biggest
from a module standpoint, what would have been the biggest challenge for an installer or a distributor?
Absolutely.
I'm going to butt in. I'm going to butt in real quick.
Get in here, Johan.
You guys are talking from a sales perspective, but and Nick and I used to work at Quick Mount back in the day when we were working with ZEP. And then when ZEP exited, because they got bought by Solar City, every racking manufacturer was trying to produce a rail-free system. And from a sales perspective, as you said, Brett, it sounds great, right, on paper. But the truth is going to install it is tricky. And so I was a technical trainer there at Quick Mount back in the day, and I had the task of going to try to convince installers on job sites to go from this standard racking to a rail-free system. Ours is a little different. We'll get into that later. But I would say, to answer your question, the challenges on the roof it was a steep learning curve. Parts were complex. There was a lot of bridge clamping going on. And I did a fun talk. We did a panel discussion at NABCEP in, I don't even know, maybe like 2018 or something. And it was talking about rail and rail free. And my presentation was Confessions of a Technical Trainer. And we had a racking manufacturer from a standard racking company. We had Quick Mount on there. We had me on there. We had the ZEP guys on there. And we talked about, and installers on there also, what the challenges were. And what it came down to is, you're right, it's not faster. It's sometimes cheaper, but actually not, because the systems that came out after ZEP are very complicated and have a bunch of bridge clamping, and we don't have that going on. So I'd say from an install perspective and a training perspective, it was a pain in the butt, and I didn't like it. And when you guys want to get into this, I'll break down what I like about this, but I'd say rail free to some people was too challenging, to install.
Yeah.
And what we didn't even talk about why people want to do rail free. And there's in those inspection challenges. I'm sure you guys want to open that up, but I'll go back to you and give you guys back the mic. But I'd say from an install perspective, it was a little challenging.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll go
absolutely
into some of that, the engineering section too. But actually, what I was looking for the ZEP thing was that, for those of you that don't know, the ZEP product requires that the solar panel has a groove built into the solar panel. So when ZEP first came out, I remember a lot of distributors kind of getting on board with it, bringing in a lot of, I want to say it was like Trina rack, like Trina kind of went in. And then, it just really didn't take off because it kind of pigeonholes you as a distributor as well as an installer with this one module, this one wattage that has the applicable frame that'll work with the ZEP system. So that became a kind of a challenge. And this is like right before, I want to say, ZEP got acquired by Solar City. for a company like Solar City, it makes total sense to do something like that. You're vertically integrated. You can, you're doing massive volume. You can commit to containers and, practically gigawatts of solar panels as well. But yeah, what Johan was referencing, I think, comes down to a couple of things. And some context for us at K2 about our approach to Rail is, I've had customers throughout the years ask me and our team, like, hey, like, why aren't you guys making a Rail? Like everybody else seems to have a Rail system. And the truth is, for me personally, my background, I started doing installs, supporting installs, I'll say, as a technical salesperson and a site visit technician a long time ago. Used some products like Sunframe and Solar Mount. And I actually liked Sunframe when I was an installer before I really knew some of the other options that were out there. But at K2, we've with our background, our experience, like we got a lot of feedback from installers who had used Rail before. Some guys would say they love it. Some installers would hate it. A lot of companies tried it and switched away from it. And so what we had was we have the ability with our product to do a shared rail configuration where instead of like in our screen we're seeing right here, you'd have 2 rails per row. We would actually share the middle row. And there's some advantages to that, but it creates a lot of the same technical challenges that an installer is going to have to deal with as a traditional rail on a roof. So our approach to this was, hey, like we see that there are real challenges to doing railers for the installers. There's lots of parts. There's custom parts for distribution that they have to stock redundantly for basically the same application. We just didn't see that there was a good reason for us to do a rail system at that time when we had shared rail, which at the end of the day, what we're helping our customers to do is try to reduce the amount of stuff that they needed. There's definitely challenges with shared rail as well, and it's one of the reasons we've gone away from that application here at K2. We don't really promote the application. We're not kind of keeping up with it because it does create a lot of challenges for distribution and installers. And so we're pivoting towards these products, and this is what we're here to talk to you guys about today. And so Nick, I don't know if we want to jump into this just yet. I mean, maybe what we can talk about a little bit is our flexible flashing technology, which I think both the Butyl flexible flashing EverSeal technology as well as direct-to-deck attachment is really at the backbone of what we're doing with this system and how we can actually do what we're trying to do. So maybe we start there.
Yeah, we've been definitely climbing in popularity with, our EverSeal technology. It's been, since we released products like the SpliceFoot line, introducing more products like FlexFoot and our Thor Butyl hooks, we've had a tremendous amount of popularity with the application of Butyl, which was, I'm glad you brought that up because both Johan and myself came from I wouldn't say religiously, but extremely dedicated metal flashing world, which is, let me switch to the slide here so you can kind of see it. Metal flashings were the incumbent for, I don't know, the last, 9 years, 10 years in our industry. And it took a tremendous amount of faith to leap forward into products like Butyl, where we, we're considering like, is this going to work the way we think it's going to work? Is it tested enough? Is the installer community going to adopt this? Are the practices right? So I'm glad you brought this up. I'm showing a slide right now of all of the complexity of metal flashings, and introducing Butyl into the industry was a major leap forward from us, and we have definitely climbed in popularity with it.
So, this is a pretty interesting topic. I was actually just on a podcast with Jake Hess at the Solar Manual Live podcast that he's doing. He just started it. Jake Hess is one of the guys is the guy that started the SolarCon trade show. When he had us on, I was talking to him a lot about this. And, for us as a racking manufacturer in the last 5 years, I would say that the transition of the choices that customers, installers, and distributors around what type of comp shingle attachment they're buying today has dramatically shifted in the last 5 years, especially. I would say 5 years ago, we had maybe just started developing our SpliceFoot X and XL product, which is a Butyl-based mount. that can do direct to deck or rafter attached. And in the last 5 years, we've gone from like 90%, 10% of traditional metal flashing with our E-Comp and XP metal flashing to almost flipping. I would say right now, Nick, I haven't looked at our last POs, but like maybe 80% of our comp shingle attachments today are either splice foot, XL, multi-mount, and basically flexible flashing products.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think the installer community is understanding the simplicity of it as well. We've seen so many different metal flashings across the span of time, and with the application of metal flashings, we're trying to emulate what the construction industry is doing for things like pipe vents, things like chimney vents, snow guards, stuff like that. But we have to kind of understand, in the solar industry, we're primarily, I think this is, my perspective, but in the hemisphere of what we do in residential solar, it's primarily retrofit. There is new construction, especially with, programs in California for, 30% offset for all new constructions that are made. And those are all, existing new construction programs. One of the things that with retrofit is this metal flashing practice. It takes experience, finesse, and talent to do it well. So, and I think those are some of the things that in the retrofit industry, you have to learn how to do. So even I, with 10 years of installing flashings, working at the company that pioneered metal flashings, even I miss pilot holes, Brett. Even when you're putting down 60 of these flashings and you're exploring the roof with exploratory drilling for flashings, you're going to run into issues where you don't hit the rafter, or the rafter layout is complex, or simply it's
Nick, let's get to that. I want to dive into something really quick that I did talk to Jake about as well, which is what does the code say, right, for flashing? And there is a code specifically in the International Building Code. The IRC, the International Residential Building Code, has a carve out that addresses flashings and copings. And this is, I think this is where a lot of confusion exists for installers, engineering, designers, and plan checkers, AHJ. What does the code say? And that code, I had written it down in the repository, 903.2 to the International Residential Building Code does reference, it says metal flashings of a certain thickness and things like that. But I think it's important to communicate and educate our audience on is that you're exactly right, that is referencing really a new construction building code. Like if you're going to build something and you're going to flash it like a pipe vent or just an air vent in an attic, it's got to do these, right? And when you have no shingles on the when you just have your underlayment there, you can do that properly. When you're making a solar mount attachment, even with our metal flashing, and again, we don't want to say that this is not a way to do it, but there are real challenges. Right. And the interpretation of this code really is, in some ways, in my opinion, trying to force a square peg down a round hole, and saying like this is how you're supposed to do it for new construction, but how are you supposed to do this for retrofit. A retrofit application, right? And I think that like the vast majority of solar installs are going to be retrofit. It's going to be, most people who are doing solar don't want to redo their roof first if they don't have to. It's an added cost to doing solar. And a new roof, decent roof, GAF or Owens Corning is going to cost you, anywhere from $15,000 to $35,000, right? And that adds a huge amount of investment to this product, this solar product that is designed, for a lot of customers, they're going to do it because they're going to save a lot of money, and that's the reason to do it. So for that reason, a lot of solar salespeople and solar companies are going to target homes that have good roofs, that are in good condition, and that they're not older than 10, 12 years old. And so that means that the vast majority are going to be retro. So when we're talking about metal flashings, this does create two really major challenges for customers. One is, like you were just talking about, how are we hitting the raft? Like that's a hard thing to do, right? It's not, most people are familiar with like hanging a picture on the wall, right? You can buy a very accurate and good stud finder from Home Depot, and it's pretty accurate. You can most of the time, if you need to, hit a raptor. Let's say if you're hanging a TV, not a picture, right? Something heavy, you can hit the raptor.
The stud.
If not, yeah, the stud. Yeah, thank you. If not, if you're on a roof, that's substantially harder to do. There are some stud finders out there, but they don't work great when they're on top of the shingles. I've seen them used for when the roofing is stripped and you're looking for your rafters. I've seen those work and they're not too bad. But we all know that installers are using, wrenches, hammers, whatever, to use that knocking technique to find the rafters. And then they think, they're pretty sure they have the rafters, and then they drill it out, right? And so, what are some of the issues of that alone?
Absolutely. The exploratory drilling, I think, is the #1 bane of our industry. So us, in the steadfast and zealous way that we try to charge forward and get rooftop solar adopted and make sure it's the strongest possible with the best technology accessible, we have a shortfall of roof leaks. It is just something that has really plagued our industry for a long time. And like you said, you can invest in complex tools that can scan through the comp shingle, and not all roofs are the same. I think you brought this up. We're dealing with a broad variety of different roofing manufacturers, different shingle thicknesses. We've also encountered that there is more adhesive now on the shingles. So, getting a metal flashing in between the shingles is actually, it's more difficult than it was 5 years ago.
Yeah. So while we have Johan here, why don't we jump to Johan? I feel like we're kind of beating around the bush. We probably have a bunch of people that want to see this thing. So why don't we get Johan up? And Johan, why don't we get into it, and why don't you start walking the audience through what it is that they're looking at, what are the components, and what's the installation process of the product.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Cool. Yeah, we had some customers come through, so I was just showing them, but they're back out now. We're at Greentech here. This is their little training roof, demo roof, and we have a cool little setup here where we have our standard rail, and there's our CrossRail system. Works great. We are the OGs of wire management, and it's funny, everybody copies a good idea, and you're starting to see more and more open channel rails. But what we're talking about today and what our whole roadshow is our new MiniRail system. So I don't know if you guys already talked about this, but Germany, our company's based out of Germany. We're the largest, K2 is the largest racking manufacturer, I think, in the world. And in Europe, they're doing a great job, and they do things a little differently. And they do MiniRail over there. That's where our MiniRail Express comes from. That's been a product since we started in the US, and it's used a lot in Mexico, where it has a MiniRail section, and it's a bigger version like this, and it goes across trapezoidal, and you mount the modules directly to it. And so we saw that concept, and our engineering department, the combo of, as you guys mentioned, moving away from metal flashings and going to butyl type flashings, like our splice foot was our big success there. We see everyone moving towards that. It made a lot of sense to take MiniRail and make it for comp. So this is our new MiniRail Comp, and it does have our EverSeal technology on there. So as you guys were mentioning, it's self-sealing, self-tapping screws work really well with this. And I'll talk about how this works in a minute here, but this we just released, and it works with our existing clamps. And this is our new cross clamp that I'll talk about in a minute. But basically the cool concept here, and you can see this is like a real install, but it's mini. And here we have clear modules so you can see everything. Basically, we're taking this concept of a rail and a mid clamp, chopping it, putting butyl on it, making the foot integrated into the rail. And what's born from that is the MiniRail Comp, right? So now you can peel this and stick it down right to the decking. If you can hit the rafter, great, but it doesn't always line up that way. But we do have a series of holes there so that if you are doing like maybe landscape and you want to go this way, you can attach to the rafters. You got options for mounting. But the simplicity of this is amazing. So I talked earlier about systems that do bridge clamping and clamp right here. Like you talked about ZEP, they had a special groove. Everyone now has, clamps that clamp here and bridge this. Pretty creative, but it gets a little complicated and you have to have special parts. The whole system of this is the mount, the screw, which I think walked away from me, but 4 screws there and our cross clamp there. So it's very simple, very easy to do. Brad, I might need that in a minute. Brad's taking my drill. Go ahead, sorry.
Can you talk a little bit about the cross clamp specifically?
Yes.
That's a brand new product that we just
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm out of all the products that we're coming out with, which is a lot at K2, this is what I'm excited about the most. So if you are a K2 installer and you have installed K2, you know that when you put in the module, actually, I'll just grab one right here and show. When you grab the module and you put it down and slide it over, sometimes with our old clamps, the top piece would rotate on you and move. The new cross clamp doesn't move. You've got all metal, no plastic. It's a 1/2-inch gap. It's a bigger top clamp, which means more surface area. As modules are getting bigger, module manufacturers are wanting more surface area. And it's a super easy install. Slide it over. It's not going to move or tweak on you anyway. It can't move at all. You push the module in, you put it down, tighten it, and you're good to go. It's really slick, really easy. Let me put this back here. But the other thing that I wanted to show is servicing is really easy too. So when we designed this, we made it, we talk, obviously our engineers try to get out on roofs as much as possible, but also one of our criteria was servicing. So if a microinverter went bad, you want to take out this module in the middle. And Brett, you brought up something super important with ZEP. I don't know if you can back up a little. With ZEP, if you had a module in the middle and you had to take out that middle module, you had to tear down the whole array from the row because everything's integrated into that groove, which can be a pain. So if you want to just take out this module right here in the middle, if this was a big array, you could just undo this clamp all the way. Sorry, grab my gun. You could just undo this all the way, pull this out, and that's going to stay in there. Pull out your module and then do your work, service work, replace the micro or whatever's bad, fix a wire, put this back in, put the module back down, and you're going to be good to go. So that's a huge benefit to the system. And you can rebuild this. You just have to make sure this piece is still in there, which it will stay in with the rail. You just put that back down and you tighten it down. And I really like how, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off, but just wanted to chime in real quick. Yep. So just going back to our approach on Rail is, we're really serious about supporting our distributors. Our distributors add a lot of value to our customers on a daily basis, delivering material, keeping things in stock, credit, financing, design support, you name it, right? So when we launch products, we want to make sure that we're providing a system that does not put an unnecessary burden of excessive components for our distributors that they got to stock redundantly. Right? So when we looked at developing a racking system, a new railless racking system, that was one of our key product requirements was, I don't want to have to go to a distributor and say, hey, I know you have all this rail for me and a bunch of other racking companies on your shelf, but I have a new railless system. It's amazing and it's fast. And here's 20 more SKUs that you're going to have to carry for maybe one customer at a time that starts to try it out. So that was one of our key components in this product. And what I want to highlight is the cross clamp that Johan is showing is our new mid-end clamp. I think you mentioned
right.
That, but with
no, I actually forgot to mention that. But yeah, keep going, Brett. Here's the end.
We now have a universal mid-end clamp. It's built of stainless steel and an aluminum extrusion, it's UL 2703 certified, and it'll fit modules 30 to 45 millimeters in height. So that covers everything we see today. We don't really see anything above 46 millimeters anymore. That's the standard mid and end clamp that our customers that are using rail, if they have a tile job or a metal job, are going to use, right? And this is what the key secondary component to the MiniRail Comp system. So the MiniRail Comp, like Johan was mentioning, is an evolved system from Europe, our MiniRail Express, designed for metal roofs. And we've been asked over the years, showing that product, if we could take that system and apply it to a comp shingle roof. And so if you're a customer right now, buying from CD, Greentech, Dallas, or any one of the other distributors, and you're using our system or even a competitor system, you want to try this, all the distributor really needs to do is bring in the MiniRail Comp System. There's a couple of other accessories that help with wire management and bonding and grounding, but it's really a two-component system. It's cost competitive, it's very fast to install, and as Johan was just describing, we've really eliminated a lot of the problems associated with locating rafters and designing and engineering a system, whether it's in portrait or in landscape, to hitting rafters. And so this is like, one of the big aspects of this product is it is 100% direct to deck in portrait and landscape. Now, this brings up a really important topic that I want to talk about, because whether you're a solar salesperson, a designer, an installer, whether a system is in portrait or landscape is actually a big deal. It's a big deal for the installer in that when modules go from portrait to landscape, they're generally always running those rails east and west across the roof. So you're mounting on the short sides of your modules, and you're now increasing the number of attachments that are going down on that roof substantially. I mean, upwards of 30 to 40% more attachments are going to go down when you're in landscape in a rail-based system. One of the really cool things about this application, the way we're doing this, is it's really simple to calculate your BOM, or parts list, I should say. Everywhere where you would have a mid and an end clamp, as I already referenced, it's the same part. The cross clamp is the mid, it is the end. So that's easy. It's just one thing. That is how many MiniRail Comp brackets you need. So that's simple. Also, whether it's in portrait or landscape, we're able to mount at the quote-unquote quarter points of those panels. So if you look at, a Jinko or a Q-Cells or Canadian or any of those module manufacturers, they have an assembly guide that says, hey, these are the allowable clamping ranges. And I would say probably like the majority of installers that are installing in landscape with rail-based systems may or may not be actually really following exactly those clamping locations, depending upon the challenges of that roof. So the system is going to basically levelize the cost of the racking in the field, whether it's portrait or landscape. So if you're in landscape, you can flip your brackets to the top and the bottom at the quarter points. And if it's in portrait, vice versa, you're at the quarter points. Basically what that means is, with basically these two parts, is you have the same cost per watt, competitively priced cost per watt on this system, no matter if it's in portrait or it's in landscape. Sorry, Johan, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just want to make sure we kind of, you're doing a great job in the field. Keep going.
Oh, no, all good. One thing I totally forgot to say, I got all excited about servicing. Yes, it's a end clamp too. So I have a funny story. One of my friends is an inspector in I think New Jersey, and he texted me and he said, hey, is this legit? And it was one of our old mid clamps turned to the side on the end. And I was like, no, that's not how you install that. I can tell you exactly what happened. The installer ran out of end clamps and he was running. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. He was running to the shop. He installed it crooked, put a mid clamp at the end to secure it so it didn't fly off the roof, went back to his shop, got end clamps and put them on. That's a huge waste of time for the end of the array. So the cool thing about this universal clamp is it is an end and a mid. So that is huge. Let's talk about saving time and money and SKUs for our distributors. Here's it as a mid clamp. Same clamp is here, mid clamp there, end clamp here. The way that it's built is this clamp is not going to turn on you. It's encapsulated into the base, so it's not going to turn on you. It's going to act like an end clamp as well, and that's done and fine. You don't have to have a special sleeve there. This is done. This is an end clamp. If you want to pretty it up, we have these little branded caps that are purely aesthetics. You can clip that on. And you might have seen me pull a knife out and clip that out because it clips and hooks on. So you kind of got to disengage it. They're not meant to really come off easily. But that looks nice and clean. We have caps for the MiniRail as well there. These are all optional and purely aesthetic, so you don't have to have that. So talking about time and money, and I'm kind of a no BS kind of guy in the sense that if you show me a product, I'm going to beat it up and I'm going to say, this is good, this is bad, this is awesome, this is crap. And The reason why I like what K2 is doing is because, one, the rail we figured out, and people love our rail. We have a lot of good features. But now the approach to MiniRail, or sorry, rail free with MiniRail is pretty awesome. And just to give you a kind of, I guess you could say, real life expectance and just visualize it, the order of operations for an installation, when you're doing rail based, which again, we're always going to have our CrossRail system. It's only going to get better and better. And we're now offering both MiniRail and regular standard rail. So when you're doing an install, the order of operations that's typical is you're going to go find the rafters, knock on it, drill it, and that's all you do as an assembly line. Usually like 2 installers up there, knocking, finding rafters, drilling holes, as you guys mentioned, probably going to miss a few, and you're going to try to seal them up. And after that's done and all the mount locations are ID'd and you found the rafters on all the mount locations, then you're going to put those tools away. And then you're going to pull out your mounts and your sealant gun and your impact, and you're going to drive in all your mounts, and you're going to seal all pilot holes that you missed so it doesn't leak. Then you're going to come back, put on the rail. That's 3 different stages of an install that I just mentioned. And that's typical of most installs and most crews. The MiniRail system process takes a lot of that and bundles it all up into typically, 1 or 2 steps, maybe even less. So you're going to go in, instead of finding rafters, you're going to go, you're going to corner out your array just like you would normally. A lot of guys mark where the module breaks are. You can see on this install here, if you pull back, there's a good example. Here's cornered out. There's marks to mark the module breaks. We didn't do it on the roof here because you can see where it's going to go. But what I'm getting at is once you do your layout, you just go take your mounts, peel, stick, come back with your gun and your screws, drive them all in where they are because you're going to the decking. And you got 4 screws, self-tapping, self-sealing with the butyl EverSeal. So you're skipping finding rafters. You're skipping having to seal pilot holes that you missed trying to find the rafters. And you're skipping taking the rail and putting it on a mount because it's all built into one. So you stick, mount, and then you're ready for modules and wire management, right?
Yo, I got a question for you. So, you've been around a long time. A lot of our viewers, a lot of people in the industry have known you as one of the top traders in the industry. You've been basically on every corner of the country, preaching about attachments and flashings and respectively. And I think it'd be interesting to hear your perspective on, the approach with direct to deck, the approach with what we're calling flexible flashings and the butyl, because we talked about this a little bit in the beginning about, what does the code actually say? Why did we, start installing these big, aluminum and galvanum flashings? And,
right.
How do you feel about this? Being that, you preached that for a long time, and, you and I have debated this years at this point at K2. And I think we have really landed on a good technology. And I gotta give you some credit. I mean, we debated this a long time ago. I was kind of suggesting we go down one road, and you were, very opinionated, and I think you were right, in terms of the direction we went with butyl and all that. So just talk a little bit about that and, your feelings about it.
Yeah. I mean, no good idea is ever one person's good idea. You know what I mean? It's a collaboration of, I think they teach that in engineering school. I'm not an engineer, but I come from a family of engineers. And it's kind of like, and I always compare it to Nick and I have played music together forever, right? If you ever went to Solar Battle of the Bands, we were playing on stage. Nick will never admit this, but he's one of the best guitar players I've ever seen. And so kudos to Nick. But Nick and I play in a band. And when you're writing a song or developing a product, it takes multiple people to collaborate on that. So Brett had an idea. He was, at the time, you were coming from the sales perspective, and you were saying, why can't we just take our L foot, put it straight to the roof, and just put on our butyl pad or I think at the time it was like a foam pad from our MiniRail Express system. And we tested it, and we're like, it's not going to hold up. It's not good. And then we saw, we got to give credit to Rooftech back in the day. They had butyl, and they did a lot of testing. So we actually worked with them early on, and we said, why don't we just make a splice foot like you see down here and do it with butyl and do self-tapping screws. So yeah, I will admit that I was, as a lot of installers are, super skeptical. And I was all about roofing best practices, and roofers are going to flash it like a vent pipe, right? But to
Right.
Nick's point and you guys' discussion earlier, you go to Vegas, or we're out here in Texas. I don't know if you could tell, but I'm sweating like crazy. We got a huge fan blowing on us. It's hot out here. And even inside this roof, we try to peel this up and we try to get a flashing under there, and it is just hard to get up. And we're inside. So, and Nick mentioned this before, there's a glue tab on the back here of this shingle, and manufacturers are starting to make these more robust and more adhesive, so it sticks down, it doesn't blow up, and it blowing, you know, wind can blow these out. You ever see 3-tab shingles that get blown out? They're putting better adhesive on there. So that means as a retrofit, it's hard to do as an installer. You go to anywhere like Arizona, Vegas, or here in Texas, you try to pry a roof bar under there, you're going to rip up the shingle and cause a lot of damage. So I did start to see the light and understand that people need a top-down mount, you know, peel and stick. And my thing was, well, show me the testing. And you guys did a great job in the engineering department at K2 doing tests. We do heat tests, we do accelerated heat tests, we do aging tests, like accelerated age tests. So we try to mimic like 25 years. They put it under extreme heat, and there's temperature variances. And I was pretty impressed with the results as a company. We put it underwater. We did all kinds of third-party waterproof testing. So I definitely am a believer that this does work, but you got to do it right too. So, and then to answer your question about roof attachments, as far as rafter to deck, look, I'm going to say always go to the rafter if you can. Like if you're using one of our like splice foot, here's a good example of our splice foot with 4 screws going to the decking, which if you have that option, great. And then there's some over here. If you move over, and Dakota's being awesome. She's manning this, she's operating the camera here for us. Here's one to the rafter where there's 2 going to the rafter. If you can do rafter attach, I always say go to the rafter every time. But sometimes you might run into a situation where, you know, let's say there is no rafter or there's rafter changes, then going to the deck is great. And we have been doing more and more deck attachments. And with a product like this, if the decking is good, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brett, but we test for, I believe, or Nick, you might know this too. We test for the weakest available. So like a deck attachment, we test for 7/16 OSB. Is that correct?
Yeah. That's generally going to be the kind of the basic standard that we see is 7/16 OSB. Generally, I mean, you're going to have other things like sometimes you'll have old style tongue and groove, but
right.
OSB, you know, according to the APA, that's your basic sheathing that most installers are going to come across, and then it kind of just goes up from there.
Yeah. So I would say with deck attachments, if you've got, I mean, we test for the worst case scenario and we're getting great results, and our screws are really good quality. So I like the idea of this. You're not, by going to the deck with this product specifically, you're avoiding missed pilot holes, which again is the #1 cause of roof leaks on PV systems, is a missed pilot hole. And you're avoiding relying on sealant and looking for rafters. So you're eliminating a lot, and there's a lot to gain by just going to the deck and using this simplified mount. And we've been doing deck attachments for a while. So I would say that the industry has changed from, it's pretty interesting, right? If anyone's been in the industry for more than even just 10 years or even like 8 years, you've seen so many changes. You've gone from metal flashing to now butyl type flashings. That's kind of the norm now. And now you're getting rafter attached and deck attached mounts that have the option of both. So installers have so many great options. And I love what we're doing, that we have all the flavors. Like, you want rail based, we got rail based. You want rail free, we got rail free. You want deck attachment or rafter attachment, we have it both built in. We have all kinds of wire management accessories. I mean, I always joke and say solar installers are more spoiled than ever. I mean, remember back in the day, not to sound like a grumpy old man, but back in the day, we had to pre-assemble our own clamps, and we had to slide them in from the side and slide them if it did slide, or sometimes they wouldn't, you know? So now everything's pre-assembled, ready to go, super convenient. So you kids got it made these days. You got all kinds of options.
So I want to jump in here real quick. So
Yeah.
one thing we talked about is with this system, in landscape, because the mounts are at the tops and the bottoms of the module going like north to south on the roof. Nick, you had shared a slide earlier that I think was really would really help explain this a bit. So, if we're talking to a typical installer solar company, and they're like, well, if it's direct to deck, how do you know that's strong enough? And maybe in a little bit, we'll be able to get Medea from our engineering department. She's our engineering manager. I'm going to have her come on, and she'll talk a little bit about the testing, the pull out, the design of our screws, and how our engineering firms are stamping and standing behind the direct to deck fasteners, how many you need, things like that. But Nick, if you could pull up that one slide that showed, one of the legacy railless systems out there, and how you would have to find rafters. And so the real difference with this is, yes, we are fully admitting that there's going to be more attachments with this system. Just like on that slide, I don't know if the audience can see it. That's our MiniRail Express system. And that system, like we said, going straight into the sheet metal with special screws. We had a lot of customers asking us about that. But if you were an installer of a railless system in the past, whether it was ZEP or one of the other products, one of the goals from those companies has been to try to optimize, let's say, or reduce the total number of mounts. Because the number of mounts on a system adds time and labor, and to a certain extent risk, especially if you're messing with shingles. And so a lot of these products, and Nick, if you could find that slide that shows like the colored dots of the array, that's helpful. So what we haven't done, because one of the things we want to do is keep this product very simple and straightforward. I've been on roofs, Johan, Nick, we've all been on roofs. Ian just joined us. He's one of our technical trainers based in Utah. We've all been on roofs before trying to teach railless systems, at least the old school style. And it's hard because in the past, we'd be trying to hit rafters, but we don't have a continuous rail to like hit rafters and find that overall support. So you're trying to place individual brackets on rafters and then not have as many attachments. So one of the ways around that is by trying to create a bridge, what we call a bridge clamp in the industry, where instead of an attachment, you might have an attachment in landscape at roughly a quarter point. And then the next rafter that you want to attach to might, be right next to it at 24, or right off the module at 48 or 60. So instead, racking companies would make these bridge clamps that connected the panels together without an attachment being there. And so if you're an installer getting on that roof, this is really hard, right? So like if you're doing a standard rail-based rafter attached system, you're going up on the roof, you're going to roughly get an idea of where that first rafter stud is. You can mark that. You're going to chalk out your array. You'll identify that first rafter underneath your rail where you're going to go, and then you can just go 6 foot, 4 foot, or 6 foot off center off of that rail. That's pretty straightforward, fairly easy to do. Next rail, you might stagger that, right? Same first attachment, skip that first rafter, and then go 4 or 6 off of that. But if you're in a railless system, you don't really have that ability, right? So the railless system that's hitting rafters, you're kind of where those modules are sitting on the roof relative to the rafters and the obstructions that are on the roof really are something that the installers have to think about. And so, Nick, I'm not sure if the audience sees that slide zoomed in, but it's a good example of all of the different components that are needed in one of these other systems. So this is like a ton more parts for distribution of stock. I've been on projects with installers where they did this wrong, right? Like they thought they were doing it right. They put the mounts in the places that they thought they were supposed to, and then lo and behold, they mismeasured an obstruction. Okay, well, now what do? We have to hit a rafter, or we have to slide this whole thing over. I've been on roofs where installers have put 60 plus mounts down, realized they put them in the wrong spot, and then had to start over.
Yes.
Kind of the worst case scenario. So when we were developing this system, we said, hey, look, we know that direct to deck is going to require more attachments. That's a given. That's obvious. But the trade-off is that the speed and the simplicity of the design allows the guys to get on the roof, make their attachments. We're not messing with the natural seal of those shingles, as Johan was kind of just talking about. and you just put your mounts down. So we're adding more attachments, but we're balancing the attachments on the system to optimize the amount of pullout needed to withstand the wind in all the roof zones, no matter what height of building. Later on, when we have Mimi on, we'll dive into our engineering calculator a little bit, how we develop our pullout through testing, the pullout values through testing, and how many screws you're going to need. We basically established through our engineering and testing that up to a wind speed of 150 miles an hour in all roof zones, in most locations like pitches and height of the building, that we can do just 4 mounts per module and just 4 screws per module. So that's per mount. Sorry. So 4 mounts per module, 4 screws per mount. So it's really simple and straightforward. Up to 150 miles an hour of wind is, that's pretty strong winds. You really, that's Florida, right? Like Florida, Orlando is 150. Above that, you're going into, higher wind coastal areas down in Florida, is where you're going to see that, maybe Houston. But what it means, and what I'm trying to tell everybody is pretty much anywhere in the U.S., 80% of the installs that are on comp fit into the requirements of just 4 brackets and just 4 screws. So your installers don't have to be up there worrying about, okay, I got this mount in this particular roof zone 3R on this height of building, on this pitch of roof. I need 6 screws here, or I need a third mount. We're avoiding that for the vast majority of the installs. And so the simplicity of the design, the simplicity of the installation is really unmatched. And I invited one of our other technical trainers, Ian Beauchard, just jumped on. And Ian's been in the industry for a long time. He's a really technical guy, understands the electrical side of things. I kind of ping him a lot if I'm trying to understand, how I can wire up an in-phase system so that I can have power during the day without a battery. We've had long conversations about that stuff. But one thing we haven't talked about yet is wire management, right? So the installers out there that, been installing for a long time, one of the features of our rails has been that we have a rail channel. That's one of the staples of the K2 products, is that we have a channel in the rail that allows installers to lay your cable down, whether it's microinverter, optimizer, or your home runs. When you're going railless, you don't have that same benefit of having the rail. So Ian, I don't know if you can hear me. It looks like you can hear us. You are muted right now. You should unmute yourself. Talk a little bit about the wire management side of this, and at the same time, Johan, maybe grab some dragon clips and we can kind of discuss the wire management side of this product.
I mean, really, if you guys have been doing railless, wire management shouldn't be any different. We do have a new dragon clip that actually holds 4 PV wires or 2 end-phase trunk cables to the frame of the module, which I think is a big benefit over some of the systems I've used before. I think this system lends itself particularly well to the DC systems like a Tesla with MCIs. You can get your wire management done on your modules before you even drop them. And then you're just coming back and doing a single home run wire with the dragon clip. Or if you're doing an end-phase system, you get that trunk cable laid out at the top of that module frame as you're laying that row. Just reach under, put the trunk cable in the dragon clip, attach that dragon clip to the frame, good to go.
Cool. So Ian, you've been with us for, I want to say, a year or so? Or have you hit the year mark yet?
Next month.
Next month. So almost a year. You've been out in the field on a lot of jobs. Maybe walk through what the steps are for the installers, and then we'll hand it off to Johan because he's down on the roof. But if you're going onto a job site, the steps, the installation steps are going to be different with this system, right? Your first, in terms of how many guys you have in your crew. And one of the things we do have to account for is the wire management, including your micro down, your optimizer. So why don't you talk a little bit about the steps of the wire management for the guys that are watching?
I mean, really, it's not much different. You're just going to plan your home run, whether it's trunk cable or PV wire. You're just going to plan that because you're going to be, instead of dropping it in the wire channel on the rail, I mean, you're going to be running it on a frame. So you just want to make sure if you're zigzagging between modules with end phase, that you're doing it in the best way, that, you're going to use the minimum number of clips. You're going to have everything easily accessible once you drop modules. But really, it's not much different than rail, to be honest. You're just doing it after the modules are laid instead of before.
Yeah, and Johan, why don't you continue that conversation down on the roof?
Yeah, I was going to add to that. So I actually did a bunch of videos for K2 on wire management for our rail-based system, where I kind of try to train guys to use the MLPE mounting bolt as wire management. So you lay the trunk cable in case of end base. This is all bundled up because this is a mini module. But if you had modules going in portrait and you had the portrait cable, you're going to put them, they're going to go one wire all the way across. So what I do in the video is I drop the trunk cable into the rail first, then put the mounting bolt for the micro, and then attach that. What that does is it secures the wire in there. Then you can use our TC wire clips. But if we're going rail free, as Ian was saying, rail free, every rail free systems challenge is wire management. You now don't have the big rail across, which has pros and cons. One of the cons is where you're going to put the wires. So what Ian's talking about is, if I was going to do this install, these are fake modules, so they're not real frames. But if this was real frames, what I would do is we would coordinate. Let's say this is a module and we're on the ground, and this is a module and somebody's going to prep this. We would take our MLPE frame mount, and Sheila's going to throw one to me right now. Thank you. This is our MLPE frame mount. So you would slip that onto the frame, bolt the micro onto the frame here. So you would do this on the ground. And I think you guys had a cool slide maybe showing somebody prepping from one of our jobs. You'd put this on, put the microinverter on or optimizer. And then what Ian and I have done in past installs is we'll put one of these dragon clips just to the right here, clip it on, and leave it on there for receiving the trunk cable that's on the roof. So what we would do is kind of like rail, where you're putting the cable down before you put in the micros. You would lay out, if we were going a big row across here, I'd lay out the trunk cable in the case of end phase. I'd lay out all the trunk cable, and then I'd bring a module over, and that already has the microinverter on it. I'd lay it down, do my connections, and then now I have that clip that's already preemptively put on there. You can put on whatever side makes the most sense for your install. And I could take the trunk cable and slip it into the clip it in, go to the next module, do the same thing, wire it all up. You have an extra clip on there, clip it on, and you can take whatever frame clips you like and just clip it all in and basically tie it into the frame. If you're doing solar edge, it's even easier because all you're doing is putting it onto the frame of the module, and you're just taking the leads like a regular module and clipping them together. Where it can get complicated is if you're doing heavy systems like NEP or AP systems, if they're a little heavier, and some of them are 2-for-1. So you could potentially put one of these down and mount that MLP to its own mount. And if it's running somewhere else and doing multiples, you can run it out and then clip to the frame. So there's always one wire management guru on a crew, and they're going to figure it out. And there's lots of tools like this to get it successfully mounted to the frame of the module. So I don't know if that explains it, but we do have some videos on wire management for our rail, and we're working on them for the rail free system as well. So you can check our YouTube or on our website. We have a bunch of videos.
Yeah. So on that note, if you're an installer that's watching this, or you talk to one of our sales guys and or one of the distributor sales reps and are interested in getting your hands on the system, we do pilot projects for testing purposes. Yes. We have our trainers. 2/3 of our training team are on here right now, and actually, I have a guest with us right now. Justin Coonrod jumped on, who's a friend of ours at K2. We've known him for a long time. He's been in the industry for a long time. He's been involved in some really big companies in the past, managing huge amounts of install crews based in Arizona. Justin Coonrod, you are muted, by the way. You can unmute yourself. Justin Coonrod is the VP of Field Ops at Suntria Solar, based in Arizona. They're a pretty large installation company. And Justin's personally been on the roof with us, actually beta testing this system. So Justin's one of the guys where, we came to him and his previous company, and, we wanted to develop this system. So like I had said, the MiniRail Express system was designed for metal roofs, had an EPDM bottom, and while that works well for metal roof application, EPDM would not be my first choice, or any kind of sponge kind of seal on a mount would not be our first choice on comp shingles, just because of weathering and temperature. So butyl, as Johan was saying, is been proven by other companies in the field for 30 years at this point. So it's a trusted leak proofing system. But Justin, you helped us to really develop some of this product, via the beta testing, the pilots we've done for you in the past. So thanks for jumping on, man.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you guys for having me.
Where are you right now? By the way, I don't think you're in your office.
No, I am. I'm driving to the office right now, but I can see all your guys' faces on the on my phone.
Okay,
so and
cool.
I can see
Thanks.
Johan
What's
right
up,
there
Justin?
on the display. How you guys doing?
Good,
what's
man.
up?
Yeah, thanks for jumping on. It's good to talk to you. I haven't talked to you in a while. Yeah, why don't you just kind of chime in a little bit? I mean, you know a lot about this product. I mean, we've showed you really early versions of this system. You've been on the roof with us developing stuff. We've taken a lot of your feedback and implemented it. I'm not going to give you any kind of licensing credit or commission, but what do you talk a little bit about the product from your perspective? You've seen a lot of installers using it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so this is a product that we were looking at using because we were in a state that required a rough inspection, and we didn't want to go through the process of having to go through those rough inspections, and wanted kind of like a railless option. So this is when K2 and us kind of sat down and came up like with an idea of this system that everybody's viewing right now. And it's super, super easy, right? Like I've been in the industry now for almost 15 years. And I started off on the roof as an installer. So like throughout those 15 years where I'm at today, I'm always thinking of ways to help today's generation of an installer and make it as easy as possible for them, and try to cut out steps for them on the day of the install, right? As a company, you're trying to make sure that you're efficient. You're not paying all this extra money for overtime on railed systems, training guys on how to do something, because with this railless system, you don't have to go back now to these roughs. You're saving a truck visit. So again, with this railless option, it really is awesome because you can run a 3-man install team and still be extremely efficient on your costs for that install on your labor. I did jump on. I saw Johan going over the wire management downstairs or on the ground. Yeah, you have your standoffs are in. I think when we test piloted this here in Arizona, we were done with the standoffs. We did the layout, which is standard for the beginning of an install, marking where all the panels are going to go to make sure that everything fits within for the plan set. It's not fire setbacks. And then we started laying out these standoffs, and we were done landing the standoffs within probably 15 minutes. And right then and there at that point, we were starting to land panels. So we had a guy that was down on the ground that was, bolting the microinverter, or some people use optimizers, to the frame of the module. And then it would do wire management down on the ground, because it is a lot easier to do the wire management down on the ground. So that way, by the time it was being passed up to the guy on the roof to land it, he simply carries it over to these standoffs, lays it down, secures it snug, and so it cut out. I mean, if you're doing like the numbers and how many different steps that it cut out, you're cutting out 4 to 5 different steps on a comp shingle install just by using this product. And it really, the guys adapt to it, and they like it, especially if they're you're with a company that pays piece pay, panel pay, because it allows the guys to install a lot faster and possibly even, slap a second job on that calendar for them to do that day. So it's a win-win for the installers, and it's a win-win for the company because you're able to install more volume just by how fast this system is.
Justin, can you hear me okay right now?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I had a little technical problem. Hey, I also want to ask you, you've been around a while, and in Arizona, primarily a tile market, but you guys have some comp shingle, but you've also managed crews in Texas, New Mexico, basically everywhere.
Everywhere, yeah. Florida,
crews,
South Carolina,
national.
North Carolina,
Yeah.
Virginia, yeah.
What's your opinion of the really, I would say like the major title shift of installation companies choosing a flexible flashing product like our Everseal, like our splice feed and these MiniRail comps compared to, you know, the traditional metal flashings?
I think, you know, with my experience with shifting from those traditional standoffs where you're flipping shingle and shoving a flashing underneath there, and having to hit a rafter, like the installers and the install companies really love and adapt quite nicely to this product, just because you're not having to use a sealant, you're not having to flip shingle. You have the option of either going direct to deck or to rafter, depending on the market. But yeah, everybody's pretty much, I've never had anybody complain about it. Everybody's pretty like, this thing's awesome. After the first day, they love the product, and they hate if they go to a different company and they're using, you know, that standard flashing product. They come back and work for us, and they're like, thank goodness, like we get to come back to this.
Yeah, you know, it's funny too, because I think sometimes there is a little bit of a disconnect between the installation teams and like procurement and engineering and design in terms of like what they want to use versus what the company is comfortable with using, right? So like you might have a product where the installers are like, yeah, this is super fast and easy, we love it. You know, maybe the engineering manager, the procurement manager is like, well, yeah, but you know, maybe we're not so keen on this yet, right? Like we're not ready, you know. And there's always going to be bleeding edge new technology out there, you know, like Enphase Solar Edge is a good example of that. You know, when Enphase and the M195s first came out, I was working for an installation company at the time, and you know, the company I worked for was not ready to make that jump on the M195s. Not to, you know, not to go too far down that road, but it was a good decision for them because those products had, you know, some issues. Yeah, a lot of RMAs on that product, and you know, so there are companies that are bleeding edge. There's companies that are, you know, early adopters, average adopters, and then late adopters. But kind of to your point, what our experience. So, and the question I have for you as more of a manager, executive of ops, right? At this point, is, you know, sometimes what the installers like or want to use is not necessarily what the company is comfortable with. And our experience right now, and what we're seeing from our sales and the customers that we sell to, is that pretty much everybody is coming back to us within our customer base, whether it's distribution or procurement or engineering, and saying, so yeah, like we don't have leaks anymore. Like we used to, you know, occasionally have a leak with the metal flashing because, you know, with a difficult roofing system, or you know, one of our installers, you know, missed a pilot hole, or you know, we've ripped some shingles by accident in that process. Today, you know, honestly, I'm, from my perspective, I'm hearing the opposite, which is like we used to occasionally have leaks, especially with newer crews, younger, you know, more green installers. We're just not seeing it anymore. So for you, as an installer and also as like a manager of these things, you know, what have you seen in terms of the quantity of like leak issues that are out there?
Yeah, so when I mean, when I came over to the company that I'm currently at, they used Unirac before, and it was the one where they, you know, you go into the lag, and then I can't remember the name of it, but because I've never used it because I love K2 so much. But it's we had
Oh, thank you,
like
you.
I have so many, when I get homeowners that call in, right, and they have a big rainstorm that comes through, or a hurricane or anything like that, the first thing that I look at when I get this phone call coming in from the customer about the roof leak is I look at the age of it, right? I'm going to look at it. I'm going to say, okay, was that when we were using Unirac, or was that when we were using K2? Because my mind shifts, right? When I go and I look at the Unirac, I'm like, okay, it probably was an installation error, because they're, you know, in the installation field, we call it spray and pray, where these guys, instead of using a hammer looking for a rafter, they'd rather just drill a million holes to look for
Oh
the
gosh,
rafter.
we've seen that, Justin.
Spray and pray. I like that.
Yeah. So, you know, when I see those numbers come up, the job numbers, I'm like, okay, that's when you're using Unirac. It probably is a solar related leak. Versus now,
So, yeah.
you know, all the newer projects that we've installed with the butyl tape, with K2, they call in, and it's immediately like, you know, I'm having a conversation, and my customer service line is having a conversation with the homeowner about, like, I'm confident that this is not solar related. So then I have the option to throw out there right then and there, like, okay, if this is solar related, obviously as a company, we will fix this and make this right for you. But if it is not solar related, I'm going to have to charge a service fee just for the truck roll. And right then and there, I get their approval on the phone before I even roll a truck out. And it is in our company policy for installers or a technician, whoever's going out there to investigate the roof leak, that they are to prove to the homeowner by pictures that it is not solar related. So that way, there's no way that they can come back and say that it is.
So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, our roof leaks have gone down. I have not had a roof leak with this product.
That's fascinating.
You said a lot. You actually said a lot there. You said a lot there. It does kind of bring me back to what Johan was talking about in terms of when we were kind of deciding like the type of product we were going to make as a flexible flashing. We actually used to have this mount that was massive. It's this like huge mount that we had designed for a counter. Had a massive like countersink inside of it. And, as a knee-jerk kind of reaction to what was going on in the market, we toyed around with it. I was toying around with the idea of like, hey, it's got a cavity in it, and we can just, shoot the sealant into the cavity for our customers and remove, the metal flashing component of it. And I'm glad we did it, actually, because I think what we've seen through some other products that have been developed, while if it's done exactly right every time, it'll work, but that's not always the case. And especially if you're in Texas, you're in Florida, you're in Arizona, it's freaking hot. And if you've been on a roof and it's 115 degrees out for 6 hours, 7 hours, guys get delirious. I mean, you still, it's focus, and there's definitely start to come issues with like memory and stuff. And if not every single one of those mounts have been filled with sealant, you got a problem. And it's from a QC standpoint, it's pretty hard. So I appreciate your comments on that. It is one of the reasons we decided to go in the direction we did with butyl, because we can apply the butyl in the warehouse, in the factory, the right way. All the installer needs to do is put it down, stick it to the roof, and send in the screws. So I'm actually going to go to Johan right now. And Justin, thanks a lot, man. If you want to hang on with us, appreciate you. You're adding a lot to this conversation. If not, if you got to go, that's cool too. But we're gonna go down to Johan right now on the roof down in Greentech, Dallas.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Justin. Awesome to see you or hear you, I should say. I was going to add to what he said. I love that. There's a lot of funny terms in the industry. There's spray. What do you say? Spray and pray. There's also
Goop
and a prayer. Goop and a prayer is one that I've used in presentations where that was back in the day when they're sealing up L feet, just praying to their God that it's not going to leak. But that was the waterproof method in the 90s and early 2000s. I just wanted to show mounts because like Justin brought up a cool point of not having any roof leaks, and I think that has a lot to do with finding the rafter, and then if you can, if you're going to go to the rafter with these self-tapping screws, do we have our self-tapping screws that are used for all of our mounts? This is our splice foot. Some of these don't have butyl on them because when I travel, I don't want to have the butyl get all over all my stuff. Like this one has butyl. This is our MiniRail Comp. This one does not have. These don't have butyl. This is our splice foot, and this is our new multi-mount that's coming out here. This is an older version, but same concept. But what I was getting at is these self-tapping screws. I don't know if you could see these, but these are really, really cool. And I don't know if Mimi's on, but she'll probably talk about. She's our engineering, one of our head engineers, and she'll probably talk about pull-out, shear, and the testing we do. And you can see that it's like a double helix where it's basically you got like a big thread, a skinny thread, a big thread, a skinny thread, and it's like they call it a double helix, I believe. And then I don't know what they call this, but this is basically a self-tapping feature, so that when you go into the wood, it basically creates the tap to not split the wood and go in cleanly. So if you ever built like Brett, I know you built a lot of wood stuff. Nick does a lot of woodworking. You go to Home Depot, you get screws. There's two types. There's the really nice ones with this slit in it, and they go and they sink nice. And then there's the crappy ones that don't have that, and they typically split the wood. So same as mounting for solar, you're going to be going into a 2x4, maybe a 2x6. If you're lucky, a big beam, and you don't have to worry about it. But you get knots in the wood. You get dense wood. You get cracks. You get dried wood, and you can split that rafter. So the cool thing about this mount, the splice foot was our original butyl mount, and again, it has butyl on it normally. This one's just my training one. You have the options of going to the rafter. 2 to the rafter is really strong, and then you got 4 to the deck, which can be the same screws. These screws are really cool because they self-tap and they self-seal. So these are the same screws that are used for all these different mounts. And if you look closely, this, I say self-tap, and you get that, what we just talked about, right? The self-tapping part with the double helix and the tapping slit in there. And then you have self-sealing. So when you drive this screw in, it grabs the butyl and it seals it as it goes in. So if you've ever uninstalled these, you'll see that they're like usually black because this butyl coats the threads, which is really cool. And I know we're getting into nerd talk here, we're getting into the weeds, but going back to what Justin said, he's probably not having leaks because, you know, coming full circle, if you can hit the rafter with any of these mounts, I would, if you know the rafter's there and you do your knock and your hammer, if you're going to drill a pilot hole to ID the rafter, you can do it in a nicer way where you use a smaller bit, drill into the center so that you're just making sure you hit the rafter. And usually I just drill down, and if it sinks down, you know you missed. And in that case, I actually use this little, it's called Chips Tools. Chip is CHIPZ, Chips Tools, I guess. And it's a cool thing. It takes, like, a lot of old school guys used to just take copper wire, put it in, try to find the rafter rather than do the whole Swiss cheese thing and spray and pray or whatever. So that's a little tool you can put in, swing it, and it IDs the rafter. Once you do that, you seal that up with either a metal flashing or butyl underneath. But what I'm getting at is if you can just, you know the rafter's there, sometimes you can see it. If you go in without drilling a pilot hole at all, and by the way, if you do a pilot hole, that's not the hole that you should never pilot for this, because if you use the right size pilot for this, it's probably a little tiny, like 1/8 of an inch bit. I'm sure Mimi can say the exact spec, but then you have to line it up with the pilot hole. You would do a pilot hole just to ID the rafter if you needed to, and then you seal that up, put the butyl on top of it, and then you go into fresh roofing with this one. And by doing that, you're getting the best value out of the pullout without any pilot hole. You're going into fresh roofing material, sealing it up, getting a structural connection, and you're good to go. So mounts have evolved quite a bit. I'm really excited about the multi-mount. This one gives you the option of 2 to the rafter, 4 to the decking that are offset, or if you want to do 1 5/16, which does need a pilot hole, to the rafter, then you can. So a lot of options there. This is our new multi-mount that's coming out. But again, a lot of these features are packed into our MiniRail Comp mount too. Go ahead, Nick. I don't know if you wanted to add something.
Johan, I'm glad you actually brought out the ecosystem of mounts that we're trying to or bringing to market here. Our entire goal with our new products was to make everything compatible with what you have today. And even if you have to go service a job that has legacy products of ours, you can still apply the new products to them. One of the anchoring points of our splice foot, the multi-mount, and MiniRail Comp is they all network together. So if you do have a system out there, of course, the rail-based footings don't interact directly with the railless mount MiniRail Comp, but we're trying to make sure that we keep everything as tight together as possible so the clamps can interact with MiniRail Comp. If you have CrossRail 44X on the job site and you want to add on to the system and you install our clamps, you can integrate those together. The same screws play across all 3 of those mounts. So we're really trying to make sure we set up the boots on the roof, technicians out there who are visiting job sites, making repairs, adding on systems. We set you guys up for success, that what you have in the truck from K2 is going to network well with what you're going to encounter out there in the field.
Yeah, one thing I really like. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Go ahead, John.
No, just real quick. I just wanted to say Nick brought up a really cool point that adding a system, like let's say we had, that happens where the customer wants to add modules to their system, maybe on the other roof or something. The MiniRail Comp, or if you had to move, let's say like there's a vent pipe and you had to move you had to move modules from your original design and move it somewhere else. The MiniRail Comp is so easy. It's like no finding rafters. You want to mount 2 or 3 or 4 modules over there, just slam them in where mid clamps go, deck attach, MiniRail Comp, done deal. It's really easy. And again, what to Nick's point, the all of our clamps work with our rail-based system and our rail-free system in MiniRail Comp, so they're interchangeable with all our clamps. So pretty cool. Go ahead, Brett.
Yeah, I don't know if Justin's still with us. For those of you that are just jumping on or checking this out live, Justin Coonrod is VP of Field Operations at Suntria Solar, comes from Titan Solar and a number of other companies in the past as well. Justin, I had a question for you. So 2 things. One is, as someone that's in charge of a lot of different crews, but really more, I guess I'm from the sales standpoint, like solar sales standpoint, is we talked earlier about this system, whether it's in landscape or portrait, really have the same installation method and the same components and the same number of components. It really levelizes the cost of your install, whether it's labor, whether it's material cost. Can you talk a little bit about someone who's had to negotiate racking pricing, or has had to deal with crazy designs that come in from a sales team that you as a field ops manager have to now make get installed? Can you just kind of touch on that topic a bit?
Yeah, so when they're having to do layout changes and whatnot out in the field, just because it doesn't match whatever the site survey was or whatever Aurora said it was going to be, and it was missed by a few inches or whatnot, now it lands in that setback. With this product, whether or not you're just shifting from landscape to portrait, it's still going to be the same number of product, right? And you're going to have every truck, every installation vehicle has we call it a truck stock, so they're going to have extras just in case. But if you did have to end up moving one panel to landscape, or one panel to portrait, it's still going to be the same number of standoffs for that install. So you're not sitting there having to run around operationally like, crap, guys, we got to get out there, we got to find these guys, we got to get them 2 more standoffs, we have to get them more wire clips, more microinverter optimizer clamps, whatever it may be, because there's not really a significant change in the overall BOM of the install. So that's another huge benefit to it, having this system right here is that.
Now, you've also, I imagine you've also worked with and supported a lot of sales organizations, dealers, sales dealers. I mean, for a lot of either dedicated EPCs or installation companies that have full sales and installation in-house, is there kind of a general rule of thumb of hey guys, don't sell things in landscape because it adds 40% more mounts and the racking is more expensive and the labor time is going to be higher? Is that sort of an unspoken rule for a lot of companies where you're trying to get the sales guys to not design in landscape?
Yeah, so I mean, even on the proposal tool, when it generates when you're sitting in the homeowner's house right then and there, I've seen some newer sales reps come through and drop in proposals in landscape, and immediately it's don't do that. You want to do portrait because of that reason. So I mean, the proposal tool itself, I mean, I think that's one of the first things that we talk to our sales teams about is when you're generating this proposal, make sure that you're generating it in portrait. But yeah, it's, and then the design team ultimately is doing everything in landscape, right. Or sorry, portrait. Yeah. But it's not that big of when we have to do a shift out on the install site, it's very easy. And again, we're not having to add extra rail. We're not having to now, now we need a rail splice. So it makes it a lot easier for us to be able to pivot and shift while we're out in the field.
Yeah, I'd also say, I mean, I don't know that this is for every job, but if you look at the dimensions of a typical solar panel, you're 40, 45 by 70 to 76 inch size panel. In landscape, it tends to kind of match the roof dimensions a bit. If it's a gable roof that's no dormers on it, it's just a beautiful solar landscaped comp shingle roof. Sometimes you'll be in a situation where you can just simply get a lot more power density on the roof. You might be able to get 4 or 5 more panels in landscape on that roof than you could in portrait. There are opposite scenarios where certain roof ridge to gutter dimensions allow you to maybe get that third module in portrait, that third row in portrait, which could also add a lot more power density. But if you're a solar sales guy out there, sometimes the goal is to try to help that consumer, that customer, completely eliminate the bill. And by transitioning to a product like this, you don't have as much of those restrictions as you would, where the orientation of the module and the system is going to affect or impact the cost of the labor, the materials, and or the amount of penetrations on that roof. Kind of just lets the design team, the sales team design the number of panels that makes the most sense for the homeowner, and how much electricity they consume, and how much solar production that they can get. I mean, is that a fairly accurate statement, Justin? You're still on mute.
Sorry, switching. Yes, yeah, it's right on track.
Cool.
So, and the other
hey,
thing is I just wanted to emphasize, because there might be some people that are listening in or might listen in later on. One of the hardest things in the field for a company is to shift and change product, right? So a lot of people are kind of scared of that because they're wanting to know, like, what is this going to do to our operation? Are the guys, how are they going to handle it, whatnot? So working with K2 has been awesome, because we pick a market and we handpick the installs that we want to try this new product out on, and we go out there and we do the install with K2 and obviously our internal guys. That way, if there's any questions that do arise, that K2 is there to answer them as well. So I mean, piloting this product in the market where we launched it has been awesome, and yeah, it's going to take the guys in the field some time to shift towards it. But once you build that one solid team that's really good at doing it, and they've worked out all the kinks, and they know how the steps of the process of making this system work, it does speed up the installation time, and it gets the guys on and off the roof a lot faster, which is what we want, because especially in the summer days, it's extremely hot up there. And these guys were spending 4 to 5 hours up there. Now they're spending 2 to 2.5. So they're literally cutting their time in half that they're up on the roof, and it's been awesome to see.
Cool. I appreciate your comments on that. And we're in a minute, in a second, we're going to go down to Johan again to talk about our new skirt product that we call the K2 Edge, but not just yet. Again, I do want to say, like, obviously, if you're looking at this system, just to clarify, what's in the frame right now is 2 systems. We do have our rail-based system on the bottom. On the bottom row, we have our rail, we have our Splice Speed XLs. The top row is where we're showing the MiniRail Comp System. And one of the things that should actually jump out to anybody that's looking at that screen right now is that there's just way less material in this racking system. So obviously, one of the things that we're trying to provide to our customers is lower cost. We're trying to reduce the amount of material, the amount of parts that are needed. Basically, from a weight standpoint, we've done some calculations, and the amount of material, the reduction in the amount of material with MiniRail Comp Systems, anywhere from 65, 70% less aluminum in the whole system, so that reduces a whole other aspect that we didn't even talk about, waste on the roof. When you're on a roof or you're a solar installer, if you go into the back lot behind the warehouse, you're going to find tons, sometimes literally tons, of scrap rail that's been
absolutely
cut, that are just in sections that are just too short to use. It's a waste. It's not environmentally the best thing for customers that are in the environmental business, right? The renewable business. There's no waste with this system, and that's something to point out. So, we're substantially reducing the material that's needed. We're reducing costs for our installers on material. We're reducing costs in labor and time and just sweat on the roof. And we're effectively eliminating waste with this system. You're not going to have any rails that are left over. Now, I will say, with some of our products like our tilt system, we have some clever ways that we reuse our rail for our tilt systems, and some other things that we can do at K2. But most other racking companies can't do that stuff. So, kind of true to our DNA, we like to make things that eliminate waste. Because if you're an installer and you buy thousands of rails a month, or even hundreds of rails a month, you're buying rail that you're not going to use. There's a percentage of that rail that gets totally wasted that you spent money on. With this system, that never happens, right? Every mount that you buy will get used. So it's we can provide some more analysis on shipping costs as well. Obviously, the reduced weight, the space on trucks. For our distributors, this is a product that doesn't have like extreme length fees that some of our distributors have to incur and pass along to customers. Like if you're at a job site, if you're on a remote location and you want to ship rail, and a dedicated 50-foot flatbed truck is going to cost thousands of dollars to get rail out to. And that's one of the challenges of rail-based systems is no matter how many rails you got to get them on a truck somehow. You can figure it out with a box truck like LTL. You can make it happen, with some clever maneuvering. But A, it's a little risky, it's a little dangerous. B, you can damage the rails, and C, like it's really hard for the shipping companies to get 14, 16, 20-foot rails in and out of a box truck. So here's another perfect example is like if you're a distributor and you're selling the product and you have a customer that's regional or even national, and they have a job somewhere that you need to get product out to. Boom, LTL, it's on a box, it's in a pallet with the modules. You're going to get it out there at a very reasonable price shipping cost, as opposed to having to get a dedicated freight, which is a lot more expensive. And again, no extreme length fees either. So I just wanted to mention that as well. There's a ton of reasons why this product makes a lot of sense. And again, it's not like we're the first to invent railless. We're not. Railless has been out there, but I think the industry is ready for what we're doing now, whether it's direct to deck. We have tons of testing. We have our engineering firms that are backing us up on stamps. The pullout values are very well understood and known from testing, for 100 years into plywood, into OSB. So we're very confident. We know this is going to work. And we've installed this. This is a product we've been installing for a couple of years now through beta tests, doing direct to deck with our splice feed product. So, okay, I'm going to get off my soapbox, and I don't know if Johan's ready, but another cool accessory or product feature that we have with this is our new skirt system. So we call it the K2 Edge. And actually, Justin also did help us develop this to a certain extent as well. It's a bit unique. Our K2 Edge system is a skirt made out of a composite nylon plastic glass fiber UV rated material, and it is totally flat. And so there's a couple of reasons we did that, but let's head down to Johan and let him talk a little bit about our skirt, the K2 Edge.
Yeah, so we have just like a little mini sample here. And I know Nick was very involved with the design of this, and I think he did a great job with our engineers because I really like this clamp. So skirt, what is the skirt? What is the K2 Edge? Installers, if you look up at it, right, if you have the solar disease, as I call it, that we have where we're driving and we're just looking at solar systems all the time, pointing them out, you'll see some of them have a little skirt on it, and it's got a little edge to kind of give it that nice sleek look. I actually personally like when systems are just all blacked out and they don't have it and get airflow, but sometimes it is nice to have a little cover to cover it up, and it's typically metal. And it's a lot more cumbersome. It's expensive. You got to cut it in the field. It leaves metal shards everywhere. So we went a different route. We're trying to change it a little here. And we're using, as Brett mentioned, a high grade plastic. This is like a really dense plastic. And it's got this really cool mechanism where you basically open it up. It's got a bolt there. This one's already installed, and I'm going to install this one. You can come in tight here if you want to go to.
Hey guys, just as FYI, okay, I see you're on the mobile camera. I was going to say the main camera cannot see the bottom edge of the.
Oh yeah,
array,
yeah.
Just FYI.
Hey, you want to look at this camera here?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is going to go and slip here, slip on, and then as I tighten this is going to grab the module frame here and tighten itself down. So you can install this on any existing system. As long as you got a lip on the frame, you're good to go. And then the cool part here is you take this plastic, and this is just a little, I guess you can call it a splice, where if these come in, what is it, Nick? I think they were 10 foot, 8 foot.
Yes.
I don't know, 10 foot. Yeah, I think it is 10 foot length.
We have 10 footers.
10 footers. So if you needed to splice them together, you could do it with this guy. You shove this in and splice it together. So I just show one there. And then the cool thing I like about this is you've got like a long side and a short side, and you could flip it over and kind of have it reach down a little further. And then if you take this groove and you rock it in, you can kind of push it in, push that there. This one's already in. And before you clamp this down, you can kind of slide it where you need to.
Yes.
And then now when you get it where you want it, you can lock that in, and that's not going anywhere. So it's toolless after you put the brackets on. So is it 6 inches, I believe you want it away from the corner? What's that?
Yeah, we're doing
8 inches. I'm sorry.
We're doing 8 inches from the edges. Yes, 8 inches from the corners.
So 8 inches from the corner, and then you have a certain spec for how far apart. What is that, Nick?
Absolutely. So when you're in landscape, we require 2 minimum, and when you're in portrait, at least 1. No, 2 of the clips. 2 of the clips.
Oh, on each module.
Yeah. And as this is actually a great subject, Johan. It's a kind of a moving target because modules are getting bigger and bigger in our industry. So the primary rule right now is 8 inches on the corners, 2 in landscape, 1 in portrait, 1 per module in portrait.
Right. So if I was going on with the 10-footer, I would put this one over here, right?
Absolutely. And you can add more as needed. We made them lightweight and simple to install, so you guys can put as many as you want on there.
Right. And then the other thing I wanted to show that's kind of cool is if you wanted to go up the roof, you can put this corner piece on. And it's pretty clever that if you wanted to put this on here and go up the roof, we have our Yeti clamps. Those are our hidden end clamps. I love these clear modules because you can actually see through and see what's going on there. So there's the hidden end clamp. You want to make it flush. This one's like a little off, but it'd probably be okay. But if you did a hidden end clamp, you can keep the skirt going and go all the way up the side if you want. One thing that I noticed also, and then you can flip this. Let's say the array is the array keeps going down here. There's a gapped module there. You can actually flip this and put it the other way. So pretty clever design. And that just goes on there. I think it's pretty slick. And the other thing is that I noticed is MiniRail is a little bit lower profile. I have seen this come down to a nice size or close to the roof to where it can potentially be kind of bird stop. So obviously different critters can get in there if they really wanted to push something back or weasel their way in there. But usually it's just like birds and you just want to block it out. That could potentially be critter guard. We're also looking at putting critter guard onto this. So there's a lot of options there, but pretty cool design, and it could be adapted to any system. So I'd highly recommend installers try this out because you can put it on any existing system. I mean, if you have a system on your house, you can try it on your house. It's really easy to do with these clamps. So nice job, design team.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, no, thanks. I think the big things about this for sure, and Nick had a big hand in developing this product. We've all seen a lot of the skirt products that are out there. Ours does sit flat, right? And we've had some customers kind of point that out, not so sure about the look from the ground. It really boxes out the edges of your array really nicely. The biggest thing though that we wanted to do was offer a product that was not sharp, big, long pieces of extruded aluminum, right? So, there's obviously going to be a bit of an adder for a homeowner if they want to have the skirt. But when you're in the field, some of the other skirt products that we've seen in the past are, can be really cumbersome to deal with and work with. You have to have shears on there. They have sharp edges. If you're a distributor, they're heavy, they're long, they can get bent and messed up. Your inventory gets ruined potentially sometimes. So in the field, and Nick is sharing a cool video that our team made. If you're in the field, you have a really lightweight, easy to cut product that has very few parts, right? So the fact that it is flat allows our customers to put the edge, literally the corners of this, and edge the corners on all 3 or even 4 sides if you want. And we only need one real piece on the roof to make those corners line up. So that's our corner edge install component. And it's universal. So if it's an internal corner, you flip it inside. If it's an external, you flip it outside. It's the same part. So way less parts to the system. It's really like 3 main components. You have your edge clamp bracket and your skirt, the edge, and then the edge corners. And that's it. And so we just launched this a couple of months ago.
But the reason we're talking about it with this training that we're doing is it pairs perfectly with the MiniRail Comp System. The MiniRail Comp System, as you can see in this image, sits to the roof pretty low, which a lot of the sales force love that stuff. They want a nice, sleek, low profile system. The edge really can get down to the bottom of the roof where, you know, it is critter guard, keeping the critters out. I mean, one of the things about critter guard, let's say, just top on it can be tough to work with. Not easy to install, hard to get your hands on it. A lot of guys have it, but you got to be cutting it with your shears to make it fit. You got to bend it in all the right spots. And let's be honest, it kind of looks awful, right? So like, you know, one of the big aspects of what homeowners are making their decisions on is what is this going to look like on my roof? And, you know, a lot of times the topic of, you know, whether it's pigeons or squirrels or, you know, raccoons and stuff, getting underneath the array is real problem. And so those two things are kind of conflicting, right? For a homeowner that wants to buy an all black, a triple black, you know, Qtron Q-Cells product, or a Jinko Eagle module that looks amazing, and then you got like this mesh thing that's all around it that just makes it look like super mechanical, right? It's not cool. It's not quite as cool looking anymore, right? So with the Edge, you know, with the Edge and the MiniRail Comp, we are achieving kind of both things, maintaining the slick, cool look of the array, nice and low, and adding the Edge, you know, will keep the critters out without having to add any additional components.
Absolutely, Brett. Absolutely. I wanted to just kind of add on to what you were talking about here. One of the things that we executed very well with the Edge and what we've heard from installers in the field is that it's lightweight. There's only 4 parts to the skirt system. And like you had mentioned, and you and Johan had actually mentioned on the safety factor of things, large aluminum pieces can be complex to cut, and sometimes they're dangerous to cut, and sometimes the only way to have it not be dangerous is to have specialized tools, like a like a 10-inch miter saw. And when in the industry are we loading the 10-inch miter saw into the truck just to put a trim around the array? So we tried to make this product low SKUs, lightweight, and safe to cut. You can even cut it with a hacksaw if you needed to in the tool bag. You know, everybody's got, you know, just a handsaw that they can use if they need to. So like we said, lightweight, low cost, low SKUs. So you don't have to manage all these different parts, especially with the roadblocks that we've seen in Railless, or not necessarily roadblocks, the complexity of different skirt sizes you might need in the Railless arena. You know, we've Ian, myself, Brett, we've all installed different systems out there, and some of them require different skirt sizes to be stocked and ordered and shipped.
Right.
So,
yeah.
We tried to make one skirt system that plays nice with most, simple to cut, you know, glove friendly, large parts, and like Johan was demonstrating, toolless. When you're up on the roof, you can preload these clips onto the modules. Most people know when they begin and end the array. You know, what modules go up towards the top of the roof in what order. I've seen people number the modules, and you can put those module clips in on the ground when you're mounting in your microinverters or whatnot. So there's a lot of plug and play with the newer products that we've brought to the arena here for everybody. And yes,
well, you know, also, I mean, with the technical design that we put into this, because it did take us a while to make this, because our product requirements were pretty specific. It's like, you know, we're gonna do plastic, you know, or a nylon based, you know, UV rated plastic, being accurate. You know, it's challenging to make something this cool, and it did take us a while, but I think we really nailed it. And one of the big things, honestly, Nick, is like cost. You know, cost is in solar is always one of those things that we're trying to optimize the amount of material we're using, whether it's in our rails, in the rail list, and even in skirts. You know, and there is, for a lot of customers, installers, and homeowners, you want it to look as best you can. But you know, everything has added cost. So I think we are nailing this with look and ease of install, as well as you know, the overall cost is going to come down from what most installers are used to. And you can put these on existing systems. You can go back to existing homeowner projects that you have. They might be calling up saying, hey, you know, like, we are having some critter issues. You know, you might be able to use it depending upon the height of this product with what you have installed. You might be able to use it, or at least just clean it up. You could put the critter guard behind it. You know, put your critter guard down underneath behind it, and then snap this on the outside. And now basically effectively added the credit card, fixed up that problem, and then added a nice, sleek look to the system without adding a lot of cost. So if you have existing customers and you're on the service side of the business, maybe you go around and call them up, see how they're doing, offer to inspect the system, and if they want to add something like a universal K2 edge skirt to it, they can do that as well. Nick, I wanted to real quick, because I know we're trying to get Mimi on. Medea is our engineering manager in the United States, and she's been in another meeting, but I did want to share something with the audience. Nick, if you could have the K2 quote, kind of ready to go, but I wanted to show the audience something real quick first. Let me see if I can share my screen. Hold on.
Go ahead.
Oh, man. Share screen.
I have K2 quote ready to go if you want.
Yes. Hold on. No, I got it. I'm going to do this. Screen 3. Okay. Are you seeing our engineering letter here?
Not yet.
So, sorry. I did share. Yeah. There we go.
There we go.
Okay, cool. So I wanted to share this with the audience. So, I don't know if most people know this, but when you're designing a solar array with Rail Basic, there's a lot of parameters that impact how that design actually happens. So if you're an installer or even a sales guy, you might not know all the things that go into deciding how many mounts are needed and how many mounts in what certain location are needed. I know we've always tried to keep things as basic and simple for installers as possible, 6 foot, 4 foot off center, pretty basic cantilever rules on the roof. But this is an example of a kind of a new approach that we're taking to coming up with our allowable design criteria, if you want to call it that. For those of you that have done design or engineering on solar in the past, you probably know that most racking companies have a document that is updated regularly with the updated building code, and the specific code that we're designing to is ASCE. So that code is always being updated, pretty similar to NEC, but this is the American Society for Civil Engineers, and they write a book, every so often. Usually it's 5 or 7 years or something like that. It seems like it's happening more often these days. And then out of that book, our team will develop a product, test it, establish what the allowable deflection typically is of that rail. And then we'll go to one of our engineering partners, and they will create a span chart or a list or a document that lists all of the possible configurations of building height, building pitch, wind speed, snow load, seismic, exposure categories. So for those of you that don't know, an exposure category is, B is in town, residential neighborhoods in the city. That's exposure category B. Exposure category C is when you're in a field on a farm and you have, not a lot of wind obstructions. So the wind can really pick up speed and create a lot of load. And then category D actually is when you're on the water, you're right on the shore, and there's nothing stopping the pressure of the wind. So all of these things are used to calculate okay, if you're using X rail, literally for us, we have 48X or even CrossRail 80, which is our biggest rail, then you're looking at these parameters, and you have in our letters in the past, span charts have been 1,000 pages long with extremely tiny print because we're just trying to pack in all the scenarios that are needed. And it's really hard sometimes to find exactly what that is. And so just for the audience to know, this has gotten more complex over the last couple of versions of the ASCE manual. As you can see in this document, there is more roof zones, many more. They're calculating, they used to calculate things pretty broadly, and now they're calculating things pretty specifically. And so that creates a challenge for us, creates a challenge for the designers and the installers to make sure that what they're doing on the roof is compliant with ASCE International Building Code. So what we've done with this product, and this is a calculator that exists internally, externally, we can share it, but it's actually the backbone of what is on our design tool. So our K2 quote tool does have the MiniRail Comp on it. And this is the document that is stamped by Moment Engineering, which is our engineering partner, that has reviewed our product capacities, allowable loads, safety factors, and then provided what's allowed. So I'm going to real quick just show you. So what we have here is a couple of different options. We used to use different size screws, but we've standardized on our 3-inch number 14 screw. You go to deck or rafter. Exposed panel, exposure category, roof zone, snow load, panel width, length, and then we also have, there's also gable versus mono slope, things like that, that impact all these things. And so what I'm showing you here is that, you know, if you're on a roof, you know, 20 to 27 degree gable roof is fairly typical. You know, in Texas, you'll get some pretty steep roofs I've seen, and in the Northeast. But you know, let's go with that. And what this is saying is that with a wind speed of 120 miles an hour, and not an exposed panel, not going to go into exposed versus non-exposed right now. It's actually really complicated and a little too complex for this discussion. But and then roof zone. And so what we've done is established that this is the size panel, this is the snow load, this is the roof zone. And what we want to confirm is that the number of screws that we have in the bracket and the number of brackets we have on that module, meaning like the module is like a window with clamps at all 4 quarter points. What percentage of the allowable pullout load is being applied to those screws and the mount? And so that's what this is. This is a screw utilization check. And so in roof zone 3R, which is like, you know, your corner of your ridge on a gable roof at 20 to 27 degrees in this size panel, and we're using 4 brackets and 4 screws, we're only using 65% of the total allowable strength of that bracket. And so this is good, right? So if you're an installer and you're in Texas, you know, Dallas, I'm not exactly sure what the wind speed is in Dallas, but like, I know like New Jersey's 120 to 130. You know, so now it's 77% screw utilization at 130 miles an hour, category B, roof zone 3R. You know, the snow load actually is very negligible as it applies to the screw utilization check. It's more of like a shear load, which is a whole nother technical thing that we could reference on this, is that unlike some other railless systems, our product is not like standing up on a post, you know, kind of like a hanger. It's not, you know, we're not putting all these loads on a sloped roof and then putting this weight and snow load on these components that kind of have to lock together. The MiniRail Comp system, the modules sit flat on the top of the MiniRail Comp, and there's not much shear loading happening to that. So it actually allows us to, you know, withstand a lot of snow load and be on steep pitches of roofs, and it's not creating some unnatural sort of pull-out moment on our screws or our mounts with this product, which is pretty cool. So I just wanted to show the audience, you know, what's kind of behind it, and that, you know, if we're, you know, you might be in a situation where you need to add some additional brackets if you're by the coast, but it's rare. Is what we're, you know, I'm trying to share. So we're at 80% roughly if I go up to, you know, 135 or 86. So I mean, these are pretty high wind speeds that we're actually getting to. Let's go up to 150 and see how we do. Now at 150, we are exceeding that. But I would say, I'm going to kind of make the argument that, you know, if you're in Florida and you're at 150 mile an hour wind speed, you're actually starting to get away from OSB. You're starting to get into things like plywood.
Right.
And, you know, here we go, right? So if you're in 150 and you're not in, you know, let's say it's not even OSB. OSB is different kind of pull-out properties than plywood. Plywood's pretty strong, right? It's like glued boards together. The pull-out and shear on that's going to be better. But if we even just bump this up to a 5/8-inch OSB, we're now at 150 miles an hour, only utilizing 75% of the screw strength is how we're trying to describe that. And then if you're in Florida, you're going up to plywood, you're going up to 15, 30 seconds plywood, you're going up to 3/4 inch plywood as the wind speeds go up. So just because, you know, so check with us, right? If you like the product and you want to use it, it doesn't mean that you're going to have to use more brackets in some of these places. It depends upon, you know, what type of sheeting is on those structures. So Nick, I'll if you have the K2 quote ready to go, let me stop sharing and I'll let you kind of walk through that, because this system is live on our K2 quote, which is a new design tool product that we've designed and implemented that I think is pretty awesome. So why don't you walk the audience to that?
Absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead and just go open my browser here, and we're going to go to the K2 website, and we can show you guys where you can find these tools. So right now I'm on the landing page for MiniRail Comp because I was getting prepared to show some videos here. But if you want to just find our tool at our website right here in all of our products.
Are we seeing? Is the
Sorry,
audience seeing your screen? Or no.
Can you guys hear me?
I'm on
Yes,
share.
sorry.
So.
I just wanted to quickly say bye on my end, just because I got to wrap stuff up and catch a flight. But I appreciate you guys having me on. That was really fun. And thanks, Dakota. She made it all happen. Are you gonna stay on?
Thanks, guys.
Dakota's gonna stay on. I'm gonna get wrapped up, clean some stuff up. But thanks, guys. Really cool stuff.
Johan, thank you, man.
Check out the video.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, good work. Also, I wanted to say Justin Coonrod from Suntria had to jump off as well. I really appreciate him jumping off. You know, obviously, whenever you have an expert that's been doing, you know, managing crews and been on the roof for years, it's great to get their perspective. So I just want to thank Justin from Suntria as well for jumping on. And I did want to confirm, are we looking at your screen? Okay, now I see, at least on my view, I see your screen.
Yes, hopefully I'm sharing screen. I got the green ribbon on the top here. So it is k2systems.com/en-us. That is the US website right here. And if you want to find any of our resources, more information about MiniRail Comp, just go to Pitched Roofs, Railless, MiniRail Comp right there. And then all the videos, downloads, and engineering resources are right there. And of course, for K2 Edge, like we discussed, just go down to accessories, aesthetics, K2 Edge right there. But let's break into some of our design tools and software here. So everybody knows our K2 base tool, if you haven't already. That's like our master planning tool. It gives you satellite images and it gives you the ability to actually upload your own images, and has an abundance of API tools. We have connections with Helioscope. We have in the front end, so you can import your Helioscope design into our base tool. We also have API bridges on the export end or on the back end. So you can actually push your designs to like the SMA electrical design tool, the Solar Edge tool. So all of that is into base, but let's jump right into our latest tool, which is K2 Quote. So like I was explaining earlier with K2 Base, a very broad design tool, lots of features packed into it, and more of a master planning tool. We wanted to kind of eliminate some of the steps it took with K2 Base to get to a bill of materials in an engineered system. So for the last year, we debuted this, I believe, at RE Plus last year, and we showed it again at Intersolar this year in 2024. But K2 Quote is our latest design and support tool for engineering your system. And this is where you're going to find MiniRail Comp. This is where you're going to find actually more of our railless systems, like our standing seam railless. And of course, all of our legacy systems with CrossRail, our tile systems, and our metal roof attachments as well. I do have a sign-in for the tool, but you don't have a sign-in. You don't need a sign-in to get started. You only need the sign-in to actually get to the engineering calculator side. So I'm going to quickly sign into the tool very quickly. It's going to remember me. If you do need to sign up for our software, it's very simple. Just give us some of the background information of your company and email addresses, and we'll email you access code immediately, and then you get access to Base and K2 Quote. So landing page for K2 Quote, let's get started. So as you can see here, I have everything in front, just like just a one-page design tool, no multiple scroll, and then we have 3 modules inside of this, or segments to the tool. This is where I would select a roof type or a ground mount. Yes, you can design a ground mount in K2 Quote, but for the emphasis of MiniRail Comp today, we're going to go ahead and just click right on the roof and go to MiniRail Comp. Now that you can see, I'm still in the project section here, and we already selected our roof as comp. We selected our product, and our roof covering is comp shingle. It's going to ask us what mount finish do we want. It'll default to the black anodized one. Nice slick design for MiniRail Comp. And then we're going to go to the clamp color. It will default to the dark as well. Those two are not interchangeable for MiniRail Comp. If you select it, if it defaults to dark, it's going to default you to our cross clamp or some of our legacy clamps, like our K2 end clamp, which comes with a dark finish as well. Speaking of end clamps, it's going to ask you which one you would like to utilize. This field is a single select, or you can tell it which size you want to use, if you want to use our end clamp and our hidden end clamps, or if you want to use a cross clamp. We're really excited about the cross clamp. Johan debuted it earlier today. This is it right here. It is the all-in-one mid clamp and end clamp system from K2. It interfaces amazingly well with the MiniRail Comp System, and that is what it looks like. Fully integrated bonding and grounding built into the cross clamp. So I'm going to select cross clamp. You'll see on the tool, it'll default to end clamp and mid clamp are cross clamp. These are interchangeable. You can change if you want to use the cross clamp as an end clamp or the Yeti, vice versa. We're going to do.
Hey, Nick, I also just wanted to chime in real quick.
Yes, please go ahead.
Sorry, hate to cut you off like that. One thing what our approach, you touched on it a little bit earlier, our approach with this tool, we really had the distributor in mind when we came up with this product. Yes. Because for distributors, especially distributors, I mean, you guys are being asked to, come up with a bill of materials or a parts list regularly for customers, right? Hey, I have this job, can you get me a parts list? Hey, what is this going to cost? We're doing job cost analysis all the time. And so, our previous tool was a little clunky on that. It was really based around, a design and engineering company, like wanting to get as much detail from the tool as possible on loading and span capabilities. And, for a lot of those distributors that are out there, especially the inside sales guys, they don't actually need to know that, right? Like at the end of the day, these projects are going to get stamped. They're going to get reviewed by the engineering firm either way. That's going to be in your final sealed and stamped permit package regardless. But, the distributor inside sales guy wants to be able to just find out, okay, how many rails, how many clamps, how many microinverter mounts do I need? Basically, it's whatever other accessories. And so when we approach developing this tool, we kind of reverse engineered it from that perspective. So if you're an inside salesperson at Greentech now, and other racking companies do have pretty slick design tools, that's kind of how we designed this, so that you can hop on real quick, highlight the orientation of your panels and the array, click the ones off you don't need, select your rail, clamp, accessories, and go. And then you'll have your parts list on there. What you'll see with Nick doing this is that, with the MiniRail Comp System, it's even more simple, actually. It's like, because there's so few parts, you don't have to worry about how many rails you need and where you're going to cut the rails and how much waste. Can you use that piece on the next row? Just forget about it. You don't need it. There's going to be X amount of clamps. There's always going to be 4 on a model. And then that means you have X amount of little mini rails. You don't have to cut them. And they all come pre-adhered with our EverSeal, which we increased the thickness of so that we can actually use those products in a number of different configurations. I'll talk about that in a second, but I just wanted to highlight, as Nick goes through this, and you can go through it again, Nick, this is designed to be quick, it's designed to be simple and easy and fast to find out how many things you need and what they cost. And then, once you have that, you can click some more buttons, and that design tool, that calculator that I shared earlier, is in the background to confirm those things that, what you have is in fact going to be okay, and then download those docs. Sorry to cut you off. I just wanted to get that in there.
Absolutely, Brett. So like Brett was explaining, all of the engineering calculator that we went over in that design, in the tool that he was showing earlier, is going on in the background of this tool. So in the segment right here in project type, we really truly only went through essentially 6 fields and explained what product we're trying to select, and we're all the way down to clamps now, and then we're getting ready to go ahead and draw our array in the grid over there. The only thing that we have to tell the tool now is, do we want 2 mounts per module, or do we want 3 mounts per module? So everybody's normally going to default to that 2, and then we can go over to drawing our array. So after that's selected, the tool knows that we want 2 MiniRail comps per module as we continue to go and build our rows. So that's what it's going to select right here as we calculate how many MiniRail comps we need and screws. Let's get to the real meat of the tool, where we actually start drawing the array. Multiple roof is possible on this, and of course we have a full broad menu of modules here. So if I were to go over to, let's say, REC, and we're going to pick a wattage on the module here. Give me 1 second here, and there we go. Oops, sorry about that. I hit the back button on my browser, so let me just get right where I was here. So comp 2, and then let's select our mod, REC. and then let's select the wattage. I believe 400 is the standard these days. Some people are doing 420s, but let's go ahead with the AA Pure Black Alpha. Now we have our module selected, and I have one roof out here. So when we drop this grid into the tool right here, it gives us 20 total right here and 5 columns across that. So you can simply just draw what modules you want to, what grid you want to put in here. You can have one roof, you can draw multiple grids across this one roof, interconnected or not connected. You can erase whatever you don't need. It's really, really plug, play, and friendly. We also have added shift in there if you have to do like a pyramid stack, or let's say that I have 10 modules here on one side of the house, and then there's like a dormer right there or something like that. So same roof, but we're still going to install maybe 3 modules over here. So, but they're disconnected from each other. And then lastly, let's say there's maybe like a shorter like eave to the house, or maybe a patio structure on the southwest side of the backyard, and maybe we can do landscape back there. So I can actually do landscape in this bottom row as well. They're not connected to each other in any way. And I could do maybe landscape down here as well. So let's say my total panel count is 16. We're trying to get our customer to like a 7.5, almost 8 array. So we're going to do 2 in landscape down here as well, or 3 in landscape down here. Got ourselves a nice 3 total arrays, and got ourselves 8.8 kilowatt system here, 22 modules up on the roof. And we did this all on one sheet. So just to imagine this was one roof with multiple different areas that we needed to place on the roof. We even have tools like these shift tools right here. So let's say up here we had like a brick stagger we were going for, and I wanted to shift the modules over and do a pyramid style stack. That's available in the tool as well, and it comes out in your bill of materials when needed. So to keep it simple, we're just going to keep one roof here, 22 modules, technically 3 different arrays with 1 orientation change over to portrait. After that, I'm going to go ahead and let me make sure I'm on my cross clamp, and my mid clamp is cross clamp. Sorry about that, guys. Let me go over to get estimate, and this is going to start to select the products. So boom.
Just to chime in, Nick, I mean, to be honest, it's like, we're talking about this cool, slick, easy to use design tool for parts, but if you think about it, I mean, this product is practically, like we said earlier, the same cost per watt, no matter what, right? Like if you're in portrait, you're in landscape, you're in portscape, I don't know, like it's the same cost. There's no difference in the cost of the materials at least from a cost per watt standpoint. Maybe you have a couple extra bonding jumpers, or a couple of wire clips here or there, but if you're if you're a dealer, you're an EPC, and you're offering a issue. This is pretty good. I mean, you barely even need this tool for the MiniRail Comp System. I mean, your cost is very predictable with the MiniRail Comp System, and going to be pretty low cost, right? At the end of the day, our goal is to help reduce material, time savings, shipping cost savings, material savings. So, yeah, even though this is on here already, I mean, I would say you barely need it.
No, certainly. I mean, in many cases, it's just for confirming what you actually need on the job site, or if you're a distributor, this is going to assist in your allocation of inventory and your billing, and how you inventory and build your strategy with your customer on supporting them with materials. So we wanted to make sure this resource was open to you guys to do that. You saw how fast I could easily get to the estimate of the actual bill of materials itself, but let's go back to edit real quick here and kind of show you what's going on in the background with the engineering of the tool. Because as you can see, it was only on selected products. Let's go to the engineering calculator over here and see what's actually going on with the system below. So some of the project information that we already pulled over was 2 mounts per row, or basically 2 mounts per module per side of the frame. So in this section right here in the engineering calculator, we can tell you what type of roof shape we're dealing with. Just a hip or a gabled? Sorry, not in that order. What is the roof slope we're dealing with? So these are some of the same attributes that were selectable in the tool that Brett was going over earlier. So most of our comp shingle roofs out there are usually 7 degree to 20, but we have variables that you can plug in as well. So building height. We already selected default mounts per bracket was 4. That's what this is telling us right here. So it's basically taking 2 per side of the module and combining it to 4. Screws per bracket. So just like we were showing you earlier in the tool where you could select if you wanted 6 screws into the MiniRail Comp or if you want to just default to 4 right here. Our default size on the screw is number 14. We can change our risk category and our wind exposures as well. So if we're dealing like a critical structure, like a category 3, we can also select if we're utilizing rafter or deck attach, and as well as our OSB thickness, 7/16, or in fractional variables of 5/8 and 3 1/4. Applicable snow loads. So this is really when we're getting granular to what the actual performance of MiniRail Comp actually is. So this can still manipulate the bill of materials if we change things. So for instance, if I change the amount of mounts that I want per row to essentially 3 per side or 6 per module. So that'll change my bill of materials on the back end when I get the estimate. I will now be utilizing more MiniRail Comps. Or for instance, if I want to change the quantity of screws that I'm going to allocate per bracket, that's gonna upgrade the amount of screws I'm going to need on the bill of materials as well. So everything is adjustable in this section right here if we really want to get very granular with the performance of the system. Brett, did you want to elaborate any further on the table and what we're staring at here to kind of give it a little bit more background, or did I miss anything?
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Again, it's real simple, it's straightforward on the design tool side, especially with the product, and that that Excel sheet that I showed you earlier is our engineering letter. It's a stamped calculator from our firm, Moment Engineering. So that'll be downloadable. That page will be downloadable, referencing those calculations, and eventually we'll get to the point where we can reference and stamp the K2 quote. So one thing I did just want to touch on real quick, because again, we're talking about how this product can be used in portrait and landscape. And some of the more savvy installers and designers out there might be wondering a couple of things. So obviously on a typical asphalt comp shingle roof, when you're designing rails east and west on a roof, your mounts are pretty easy to place, right? And especially compared to a tile roof. Mounts you have a lot more flexibility on placing your mounts because you're dealing
Absolutely.
with what, a 5-6 inch shingle course where you can place your mount. So this product, I don't know if you can pull up your maybe your slides, just show that our product again. Makes it pretty easy to select a course of shingles and stick to it, and that'll establish where you're gonna put your mounts, where your clamps are gonna work. But we're also talking about how we can do this in landscape. And again, you do have as an installer the ability to hit rafters in landscape because the rafters are going to be either 24-inch off center, 2x4 truss, engineered truss, typically, or you'll have 2x6, 2x8, 16 or 12 inch, 16 or 24-inch off center. So you might be in a situation in landscape where you can actually hit rafters. With that said,
Certainly.
we can't, relative to the module size, the location on the roof, we can't guarantee that you're going to hit a rafter. So if you are putting the mounts in those locations and there's a rafter nearby, yeah, slap it on and send it into the rafter. It'll be stronger. It's not necessary. It's not required. But one thing that I did want to touch on is the shingle courses, right? So if you're going in the landscape and you want to hit those long sides, you might find that your mount is going to line up right at the drip edge of one shingle course to the next. And I did want to point out, if I can show this guy here. Nick, I'm going to grab the screen real quick. I just want to show the audience.
We do have it in our video if you want me to show it.
Well, hold on. No, I have something else I want to show. Are you seeing the PRI document yet?
I stopped sharing, so you can start sharing.
Got it. So this is our TAS 100 wind-driven rain test. And I wanted to show this because this is pretty cool. What we had done with this is we, on the test configuration, we were able to test these MiniRail brackets in a bunch of different configurations, right? And so we knew that, you know, sometimes if you're doing it in landscape, you might be in a situation where your bracket is actually, let's call it straddling the drip edge of one shingle course to the next. So we did two things. One is we doubled the thickness of the butyl on the bottom of the mount. So what that does is it eliminates the need or the requirement for an installer to have to take separate pieces of butyl and like cut them and level out. So, you know, on a typical standard architectural shingle that's not too tall, because there's going to be a limit when you get into some of those presidential level shingles, that you can go over the course of the shingle. And so what the color-coded dots are telling us in this test, this is a low slope, 212 pitch roof. So it's where like the wind can really, in the rain and the water can really get underneath these mounts. In the worst case scenarios, we tested it with deck attached, which is the blue dots, rafter attached, which is the red dots. And we did this over the courses of shingles, uneven areas of shingles. These all passed, obviously. And this has been our experience with butyl in general, is it's passing all of our testing. We've also done submergence testing, where we place these brackets underwater and test that. We do moisture testing, UV testing on the butyl as well, and you know all the results are coming back where it's not leaking. But we want it to be realistic for installers. So two things. One is if you're mounting modules in landscape, it's best practice to have them at the quarter. But let's say you're installing and you're on the roof, and you know it's the last module at the gutter line. You know, do you want to be hanging over the edge of the roof, you know, with your rope and your harness trying to tighten your clamps, you know, or you have to get your ladder and get up there and tighten those clamps right at the gutter edge. And it's kind of dangerous, you know, and it's kind of a pain to like get your ladder up and do that. You also have the ability to mount on the short sides of the panel in the areas where it makes the most sense. Okay, so not only is this showing like, hey, rafter, deck attached across the drip edge on uneven shingles. On that type of module. Sorry, I was just getting another call. It was really distracting. But I just wanted to add this one thing. So yeah, Nick, I think we're basically about ready to wrap it up here, right? We've been talking for a really long time, and I think we've covered everything. Actually, I think we did a pretty good job at hitting all the points. Did you have anything else you wanted to add to this?
No, I just wanted to thank everybody on our team for joining and everybody on YouTube for joining. We really truly appreciate all your guys' support out there, all of your patronage and all your attention and love and respect. Thank you. Ian, thanks for making time. Brett, thank you for always elaborating on the finer details and performance of the system. Couldn't do it without your leadership, dude. And of course, our team in Houston today. Brutally, you know, surviving the heat in a hot warehouse, showing us how to install these fine products that we've taken a lot of time and attention to build. So
yeah, thanks, Nick. I mean, I final comments. I just say, you know, I hope this was valuable for the audience. You know, trying to combine a in-person on the mock roof demo, having Johan. So appreciate Johan and Dakota being available, Brad in the field. And hope this is a little more interesting than just doing a webinar. I mean, we're talking for a long time, but you know, allow people to just kind of jump in and out. And if you guys, if you stopped in for a little while and you want to share it, or we'll obviously post this entire thing, we can probably chop it up and make it a little more digestible as well on social media and on YouTube. But yeah, thanks for being with us if you did. And if you have questions about this product, reach out to your local Greentech sales rep, especially in Texas. We're doing the roadshow right now. We're literally doing the roadshow in Dallas today. And if not, you know, reach out to one of the other distributors. Reach out to, just call the number, email us, reach out to your local K2 sales rep. And also just wanted to thank Justin Coonrod again from Suntria Solar jumping on. And yeah, especially you, Nick, for hosting and seeing this thing. Appreciate it. So let's hop off. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.